The St. Louis Cardinals desperately need a rebuild. After finishing with one of the worst records in the National League, they traded just about everybody they could. They moved on from some of their best players like Nolan Arenado, Brendan Donovan, and Sonny Gray. So today, I'm taking over this team and not just winning them a World Series, but also turning this historic franchise back into a dynasty. And because I know many of you will ask, the roster we're using today is made by Turd Burglar 432. This will be my first rebuild of MLB The Show 26. So if you're excited, please drop a like and subscribe, as I'm trying to reach 100k by the end of the year. Starting out the season, we are ranked 28th in the league, projected to win 69 games. Taking a look at the roster, our best player is 23-year-old Mason Wynn, but I feel like they're severely underrating Ivan Herrera. This is the first time I'm looking at the Cardinals ratings in MLB The Show 26, but considering that Herrera made the MLB Top 100, I can't help feel that this rating's a little low. Regardless though, he should be able to develop as a B potential contact first player, and looking at the rest of our roster, there's a lot of talented young players who are going to be hungry to prove themselves. That being said, this Cardinals team is young, inexperienced, and has a lot to prove. After trading Sonny Gray, this rotation's a little scary, so we are definitely in rebuild mode, at least until some of these young prospects make the show. Pitching prospects like Jurangelo St. and Liam Doyle are not too far away, but the two players driving up this farm system are Rainiel Rodriguez and JJ Wetherholt. At 23 years old, Wetherholt specifically is one of the most electric young prospects in baseball, and at 71 overall, we're likely going to call him up this year. Now, if you're new to the channel, I like to play my rebuilds as grounded and realistic as I possibly can, because I believe that there is nothing more satisfying than building a team with players that you drafted. We are jumping into opening day just to take a look at some of the younger players on the roster, but once again, this is a rebuilding year, so do not expect season 1 to take very long. I do believe that several players in this lineup could develop into players to build around, so while the draft is always important, I feel like our current roster is just as big of a priority. Our lineup has so many B potentials, but as you can tell, there's still a lot of development to do as we're scoreless after 2. While the offense is promising, this rotation could be really bad, as our best starter is Kyle Leahy, and with the bases loaded, he leaves a fastball right down the kisser. That is a Cedric Mullins grand slam, so we're trailing by 6 on opening day. Now obviously after that, I am not expecting to get the win, and I'm just thankful we avoid the shutout. That ended up being our only run of the day, as the Rays beat us 8-1. While I'm excited for this offense's future, it's clear that we need a little more marination, and our best pitcher just gave up 8 runs, so I'm not confident about winning a lot of games. We're going into the first week of scouting with a 3-5 record, so now we're jumping into scouting for the very first time, where we have the number 13 overall pick. In MLB The Show, I always prefer to draft position guys in the first round, but looking at the players near our selection, a starting pitcher might make the most sense. Just from looking at the draft class, I'm not seeing any generational talents, and I'm not really interested in any of the position guys near our selection. So far, my favorite player is third baseman Jorge Castro, who is the 39th best player in the class. While his contact definitely needs some work, the rest of his game is pretty impressive, and depending on how good he is, I might be confident taking him all the way at number 13. Then with our remaining scouts, I'm going to start out by discovering international pitchers, and if you want to know the reason I'm doing this, watch my draft guide right after this rebuild. We're starting the year off with a losing record, and now things are getting really ugly as we are 5-9 after another week. We are now projected to win 68 games, which is a few lower than they won last year. After the first week of scouting, Jorge Castro's ratings stay mostly the same, so we're going to give him another week of scouting just to see if these ratings go up. The Cards just lost Nolan Arenado, so he would be the best possible replacement, and how about scouting a catcher in Robbie Berg? I know we've got Ivan Herrera, but he might not be here forever, and Berg's contact is unbelievable. My strategy in the draft is usually just to go for the best player available, as I feel like there's never anything wrong with adding more good prospects to your system. Another week we'll fully scout Berg, but now that we've spent our first 3 weeks discovering pitchers, we're going to replace those discovery scouts with pitching scouts. This is the biggest change to my scouting strategy, as starting out with discovery simply allows me to get more scouting done on all of my pitchers. I feel like scouting's off to a good start, but it depends on how the catcher looks, and simming to the start of May, we are 5 games under 500. I don't know what is going on with Milwaukee, but they're playing terrible with a 9-21 record. I want to say that's even worse than the Rockies, but going to the NL West, they have the best record. I've got no idea what's going on in this universe. In the year 2026, the Rockies and the Pirates have the NL's best records, but baseball's best record belongs to the Seattle Mariners. We are only a month into the year, but the offense has been a lot better than I expected, as so far we're getting a breakout year from Nolan Gorman. It feels like the Cardinals fans have patiently been waiting on him to break out for a while now, but now 5 years into his career, he's doing everything he can to fill Nolan Arenado's shoes. Another player who's raking is Alec Burleson, and if you've had him in a franchise before, you should not be surprised. This guy's a really good hitter, and therefore he always produces in franchise. Those two guys have been the best, along with Mason Wynn, who's actually hitting for decent power, and of course, Ivan Herrera showing that he is way better than his 74 overall rating. The offense has been really encouraging, but going over to the rotation, everybody's struggling except for Michael McGreevy. After another week of scouting Robbie Berg, he goes up to the number 2 player in the class. Between him and the third baseman, scouting is off to a really nice start, so now that I feel like we have some really solid options for the first round, it's time to move on to some late round gems. We're starting off with 20-year-old shortstop Jay Newell, who has really good potential. After a week of scouting Jay, his draft rank holds up, and that's a really good sign that he could be a high potential guy. We're also done scouting international pitchers, moving on to the Central region, and there's a sweep against the Athletics. It's not exactly a winning season, but we're still projected at 69 wins. That makes me feel optimistic that we could get better as the year goes on, as we finish scouting Jay, who's now the number 78 player in the class. Aside from recording the scouting guide, this is my first official draft of MLB The Show, and I just realized that I might have missed a good prospect. Right now, it might be hard to tell, but second baseman Diego Hernandez perfectly fits the bill for an early round gem. We could have a really good second baseman on our hands, as the Cardinals have won 7 in a row and make that 9. They finally lose against Cincinnati, but they are now just 2 games under 500. Additionally, Diego Hernandez drops to 95 potential, which is exactly what you want to see when you're looking for gems. For some reason, all of the high potential guys tend to drop to 95 potential after the first week of scouting. Just to make sure he's legit, we're going to scout Diego for 1 more week, and now for our pitching scouts, I'm going to move them to the east. After another week of scouting, we do see that Hernandez is now the highest rated position guy on the board. If he's available, he might be my selection at 13, as checking out the other options, I do like Robbie Berg and Jorge Castro. After going on a bit of a hot streak, the Cardinals are back to their old ways, and looking at the stats, it seems that Nolan Gorman is slowing down after a torrid start to the year. His OPS is down to 722, which is still pretty good, but since he's on a cold streak, that has a chance to get a lot worse. However, it's really nice to see Mason Wynn having a career year, as he's batting .295, with Ivan Herrera right underneath them starting to heat up. Those might be our most important players on offense, and going to the rotation, there's not really much to see here. At 25 years old, Michael McGreevy is still having a pretty good year, which at least is a positive. After ending May off on a really nice note, the Cardinals are falling apart, so now we're just gonna advance to the MLB draft. We have a really nice board to choose from, but right now my favorite target is Diego Hernandez. While his ceiling is not the highest, the game has him at number 3 on our board, and with really good contact, he could be the long-term answer at second. And while I do want to take a starting pitcher at some point in the draft, there's still 2 discovery options on my board. Ivan Mesa and Andre Larson could be there later in the draft, so we're gonna go a different direction, as instead of reaching for a position guy, we will be taking the best closer on the board. As I always say in franchise, when in doubt, take a closer. As we get our guy and simming to the next round, I'm still seeing a lot of options. Most notably, this shortstop is still available, and while it's a bit of a reach at number 50, he has guaranteed high potential. Now in round 3, our board is getting a whole lot smaller, but both of our discovery pitchers are still available. That being said, I'm once again taking the best player available in Amos Tatum, who should also have a very good ceiling. Now in the 4th round, I could take another middle infielder in Chad Cannon, and while he does have very good potential, I don't want to miss out on grabbing a catcher. We are taking William Williams. That will bring us into round 5, where all 3 players are still available, so now I feel like I have to go pitcher. We are adding a solid lefty in Andre Larson, and simming to round 6, Mesa and Chad Cannon are both available. It's definitely tempting to go with Cannon based on his name alone, but after passing on other pitchers in the class, we're gonna double up and end things off very strong. I fully believe believe that we crushed that draft as we're 41-56 at the break. And looking at the All-Star voting, I am not seeing a starter. It is very likely that the only player to make the All-Star game was entirely by default, as I'm not seeing Michael McGreevy or our catcher. Going to first base, I have to scroll down to find Alec Burleson, who indeed gets in by default. I really thought Nolan Gorman had a chance, but it seems he played his way out of it, finishing outside of the top 10 in National League third base voting. Despite missing out on the All-Star game though, he is still leading our team in home runs and RBIs. That is very impressive as he seems to be developing. He is up to 74 overall, and at 25 years old, he's definitely behind schedule, but I still believe in him. If one thing's for sure, he definitely deserved to be in the game over Alec Burleson, who was worse in every possible way. While the first half of the year was pretty rocky for the Cardinals, it does feel like quite a few of these players are a step closer to becoming core parts of the team for the future. Then on the pitching side of things, we definitely need some help sooner rather than later, but it's good to see Matthew Liberatore and Dustin May end things off on a hot streak. Then in the bullpen, while some players like Swanson and Gordon Graceffo were pretty good, the rest of the unit was absolute cheeks. At mid-season though, our farm system has gone up from rank 13 to rank number 7, and it seems that the improvements of JJ Wetherholt and Rainiel Rodriguez are a huge reason for that. They are both so close to getting to the show, but just because of how we're playing this year, it might be best to call up JJ Wetherholt at the beginning of next season. The strategy behind that is we can get a draft pick, as look at this crazy trade made by the Phillies and the Rays. Philadelphia picks up 3 B potential players in exchange for 3 C potentials. Then leading up to the deadline, we get another big trade with Jacob deGrom going to the Cubs. Approaching the deadline, I think we only have one player to sell, and that's Dustin May. He is 76 overall and on a hot streak, so I feel like a contending team could benefit from his services. This is the first time that I've been in the brand new trade hub in MLB The Show 26, so I'm very interested in seeing what type of deal we get for Dustin May. I'd also be interested in doing the same thing with Jojo Romero, who on paper is 72 overall with B potential, but just looking at the stats this year, I don't think anybody would be interested in this. Because of that, May is the only player we're trying to sell, and because MLB The Show removed the trade finder, we have to manually find a trade partner ourselves. I know this is a hot take, but I actually kinda like this feature, as it does force you to look at teams' rosters to find a good fit for your player. The Padres are making a playoff push, but they could really use a number 4 starter, so we were asking for 23-year-old Miguel Mendez. Even though he's B potential, being 23 years old greatly decreases his average, so this trade might actually go through. With the deadline approaching, I'm curious if we're gonna get an offer, and going into the trade hub, the Padres have still not made a decision. There's a chance that I waited too long to get this deal through, as the Padres do reject the trade. I do feel like this trade was a little bit too in our favor, so maybe it's a good thing they didn't make it, as we're 15 games back in our division, but at least it's time to look at our first draft. I am feeling really good about this draft, especially with the addition of Diego Hernandez. He is the number 3 player in the class, and after scouting him while trying to sign him, he only got better. His max potential is now up to 96, but he actually comes in much lower than that. He is unfortunately just under 90, so we do not get the 90 potential sweep. Do keep in mind that in my limited experience playing this game, I'm finding that there's far fewer 90 potentials in the first round, as the game seems to be generating more guys like Diego. While 62 overall is a little bit disappointing, I can't complain about getting our second baseman of the future in the first round, followed by our future closer. Once again, closers are extremely broken in MLB The Show, as if you're in doubt, you can usually just draft one of them, so I always tend to draft them when I'm not feeling good about my board. Drafting Sammy Aguilar was definitely the right decision, as he's 69 overall right out the gate, but then we went back to the position players, doubling up with a really solid shortstop and second baseman. They are both 92 potential and low 50s overall, giving them chances to develop down the line, and then we took Williams. games. This was everything I could have wanted in the first draft of the rebuild, as we even ended off taking 2 lefty pitchers in a row. Out of the two, Ivan Mesa has the higher ceiling with 96 potential and 59 overall, but I've got a great feeling that both of these players will eventually be in our rotation. No matter what our record is, I feel like this draft class alone makes this season a success, so we are simulating the rest of the season winning 71 games. While the record's a disappointment, that is right around where I expected us to be, so the only thing that matters to me is that the offense got some really solid reps. It was notably a really good season for Nolan Gorman, as he broke out with 30 home runs and 99 RBIs. That boosted him from 72 to 76 overall, and checking out the rest of the lineup, it looks like everybody else improved by at least 2 overall. Aside from Gorman though, our most improved player was definitely Victor Scott, who gained a ton of contact, getting up to 77 overall. Considering that he's a speed-first player, this stat line is honestly not bad. So with the offensive success, we're checking out the rotation where Matthew Liberatore didn't have the best year, but still improved. He's up to 77 overall, while Kyle Leahy is now up to 80. Prior to our new draft class joining the farm, we're ranked number 7, although I would not be surprised if that goes up to number 1. When opening day comes around, JJ Wetherholt will get the start at second base, and while our number 2 prospect's a little bit further behind, he did get up to 70 overall. Simming October, the Yankees beat the Dodgers in the World Series, as they get their revenge from 2 years ago with Ben Rice winning the MVP. No surprise here, it was a 4-peat for Shohei Ohtani, but then in the American League, a different Yankee takes it away from Judge. Giancarlo Stanton had a monster season at 36 years old, as in the American League, Garrett Crochet wins the Cy Young, while Christopher Sanchez wins it in the National League. Entering the offseason, we have 4 players hitting free agency, and honestly, none of them really need to come back. While I would be interested in retaining May, he is asking for way too much money at $17.3 a year. That is not going to happen, as going to Jojo Romero, he wants $5 million after a 5 ERA season. After only winning 71 games, we are not in a position to spend huge money, but it would still be nice to bring in a solid arm, as Zach Gallen is very tempting, but as the 18th ranked free agent, I don't think it's going to happen. As I've already said, bringing back Dustin May just doesn't make any sense either, but I do think someone like Zach Eflin could make a lot more sense. While he's not flashy at all, he does have a very high control rating, and with walks per 9 removed from the game, I have a theory that control is going to matter a lot more than the other stats. As you can see, Eflin had a really good season, putting up a 3.88 ERA, so we're going to add him to the board and hopefully offer him a deal. Along with him though, I'm also interested in taking a shot on Michael Soroka. The former starter has B potential and also enough stamina to eat as many innings as we need. Now with 2 pitchers on the board, I think it's time to look at the position guys, and in left field, there are 2 intriguing players in Miguel Andujar and Jake Bowers. Both players are B potential and would definitely give us the power that we're looking for, but I think Andujar is just in a different world. The 99 contact versus left and clutch ratings are gonna push me to sign him, so we're starting free agency with a full board. Now simming to the next week though, it seems that Miguel Andujar is not interested, but at least the 2 pitchers have a chance. Then in the next week, we offered 2-year deals to Eflin and Soroka, and one of them becomes our first free agent. Looking at the other free agents on the market, I am seeing Luis Ariz, which of course is always interesting. In most cases, I would definitely bring him in, but remember that we have JJ Wetherholt waiting in the rings. He is one of the most exciting young players in baseball, so we gotta give him a chance. So instead of someone like Ariz, I think I want to add someone for positional versatility, which Ezekiel Duran can offer a lot of. He's also B potential at 69 overall, so that is an easy addition to the board. We are slowly but surely rallying back for Andujar, as he's at 48%, but while we're waiting for him, we can offer contracts to the other 2 players on the board. Simming forward, Michael Soroka is making his decision, and for the 3rd time, he declines the contract. He doesn't have any market though, so the good news is we should be able to get him to eventually accept this, along with Duran, who is buried underneath several other second basemen. Then to close out the week, we are finally making an offer for Miguel Andujar. I really want to get him, so we're offering him a little bit more money, and he is immediately making his decision, signing with the Cardinals. That is great news heading into the lottery, where we're looking for the number 1 pick, but that is not like unlikely as we only have a 10% chance to get it, and simming forward, we do go up by 1 slot. That is really good news as Ezekiel Duran immediately signs with the Cardinals. That will bring us to one of my favorite places to add pitchers, the Rule 5 draft. We are starting off strong, signing Jake Irvin away from Washington, and now in the second round, let's go get Yariel Rodriguez to be our second best reliever. Those would be our only 2 selections of the Rule 5, and that kind of made me realize just how badly we need relievers. With 3 relievers on the board, Michael Soroka finally accepts his deal. We've been waiting for that all offseason, as now we can close things out strong with either Eric Lauer or JoJo Romero. Despite his struggles last year, Romero did improve to 73 overall, so I would ultimately be open to a reunion, but only on a prove-it deal for 1 year. This could be our final move of the offseason, as Romero is coming back on 1 year $3.67. This offseason has been incredibly successful, and the cherry on top is that Eric Lauer is also coming to St. Louis. I have now been rebuilding teams on YouTube for 3 years, and a lot of you have told me that my videos really help you sleep. Honestly, I gotta tell you guys that I'm in full support of that, because sleep is one of the most important things, and today's sponsor Manta Sleep is committed to help you sleep even better. Due to the launch of the new MLB game, I've been staying up until 6-7 o'clock in the morning, and while I've basically been nocturnal over the past week, the Manta Sleep sound mask has really saved me. This is a 100% blackout sleep mask that also has C-shaped cups that fit perfectly over your eyes. It is truly a one-of-a-kind sleep mask, as it's not only 100% blackout and feels good to wear, but the design of the mask itself makes it perfect for side sleepers like me. Additionally, for all of you who admitted that you like to fall asleep to my videos, this mask has Bluetooth speakers built in the side, so you can get even better sleep while watching my content. Click the link in my description and use promo code Scrawny to get 10% off your very own Manta Sleep sound mask. Thanks again to Manta Sleep for sponsoring this video. Now that could take us to the end of the offseason, but before we get there, I think there's a couple more players I might want to try and sign. First and foremost, we need more starting pitching, and I'm seeing Tanner Houck available for $3 million. Now I'm curious if they fixed the issue where free agents do not accept 1-year deals, and it seems they didn't. In case you're unfamiliar with this bug, if you offer a 1-year deal to somebody in free agency from this screen, then it takes a lot more money to get them to sign. I just went $1 million over his asking, so unfortunately I'm gonna have to give him 2 years. We get a solid 5-starter in Tanner Houck, and now I'm interested in offering a short-term deal to Luis Garcia. Gonna try the same thing, offering him a 1-year deal at first. That's not gonna fly, so why not 2 years at 3.1 a year? Then from there, I think we're just gonna fill out the organization with some depth and move on to the next year. Also, one thing that I am pleading for you guys to do is please save your game, because I actually just played through the rest of the offseason and it crashed on me. So until that gets fixed, I don't want anybody to lose like 2 years of progress. We're going into spring training where the Yankees make a blockbuster move for Mason Miller. I haven't really been paying much attention to the trade so far, so I'll definitely have to keep an eye out. Now entering spring training, there's one more thing that I gotta do, bringing up JJ Wetherholt to MLB. He will join a pretty crowded infield room, but is definitely the favorite to win the job. Obviously though, JJ's gonna have to work his way up through a pretty competitive lineup, as we have so many players that have B potential. We also just signed Miguel Andujar to hit in the top of the order, and while our bench is gonna get a lot thinner before opening day, there are some really promising players here as well. Then there's the rotation, where I'm feeling a lot better about adding Zach Eflin and Tanner Houck right at the buzzer. These are 2 players that are looking to prove themselves. Then in the bullpen, we have newly signed Rule 5 draft pickup Jake Irvin, along with Michael Soroka and Eric Lauer, and finally, we re-signed JoJo Romero. It would not be a new year without talking about this farm system though, and our 6th round pick, Ivan Herrera, is the #1 prospect in baseball. Honestly, I'm not really a fan of that logic, as he's 59 overall, and despite his high potential, he did just get drafted. Along with him, we also have 2 other prospects from our draft in the top 6. I would be shocked if we don't have the best farm system in the league, especially after adding Diego Hernandez at number 15, and JJ Wetherholt is still holding strong at number 26. After counting, we have 8 top 100 prospects, and that will make us the 2nd best in baseball. I know it's not number 1, but considering that we were in the middle of the pack last year, I'm feeling pretty good about that, but of course, I gotta go find out who's the best. Scrolling through, it is the Chicago White Sox, and they have a pretty good player at the top, as Jermaine Ridley is 67 overall with A potential. potential, but then after him, I'm seeing a whole lot of players who are B potential, so I really don't think the game's ratings got this right. One of my goals for this 10-year rebuild is for the Cardinals to become and remain the #1 system in baseball, so we're going to keep an eye on that moving forward. For now though, we're moving on to opening day against the Phillies, looking for a big game against Cristopher Sanchez. The offense wasn't great last year, but there were still plenty of bright spots like Nolan Gorman and Ivan Herrera. We get 2 aboard against Sanchez, but Burleson swings and misses, and our opening day starter is Kyle Leahy. He's definitely not a legitimate ace, but at 80 overall, he's one of the highest ranked players on the team and put up pretty solid numbers in 26. He is being tested against a very good Philadelphia offense though, and Bryson Stott just cleared the bases with a double. This is not a good start for Kyle, who's looking to build on pretty solid seasons over the past couple years, and that barely drops in. This was not a good inning for the Cardinals, and after turning a double play, our offense needs to rally. That will bring us to the first career at bat of JJ Wetherholt, and while we're not playing well today, he does secure his first base hit. That is his first of hopefully many major league hits, although he's gonna get stranded at first base. Cristopher Sanchez is 96 overall, so there's a pretty slim chance that we win this one, although Josh Baez gets us back in it. It is only a 1-run game in the bottom of the 5th, and with the speedy Victor Scott on first, he's able to get all the way to third on a Newt Bar single. We cannot afford to waste this opportunity, as the bases are loaded up for Burleson. Payoff pitch goes right to Trey Turner. Philadelphia somehow got out of that without giving up a single run, but JJ Wetherholt, in his rookie debut, delivers another shot. Unfortunately though, Trey Turner would tie it right back up, and with 2 runners on in the 7th, we strand both of them. That will bring us into the 8th inning, where the next run could very well decide the game, and I have to give our new look bullpen a lot of credit here. Aside from giving up the home run to Trey Turner, they have been extremely efficient, as we have nearly put them away in the 9th. Now with Trey Turner on second, we are able to get out of the inning. Despite starting the game down 3-0, we have rallied back, and now we're going to extra innings. We are bringing out the big guns in the 10th, although Swanson immediately misplaces a cutter, and that will be an RBI. Bryce Harper takes advantage, and they score again. It has been a really nice effort, but it's going to take quite a bit to beat Philadelphia, as Ivan Herrera dribbles a single, scoring a run. That will give us at least a fighting chance, but this Philadelphia bullpen's one of the craziest I've ever seen, as Brandon Marsh makes this catch. He went parallel to the ground, bringing us down to our final out, but Josh Baez, that's a single, the runner's coming home, and let's go. How about that? Tying the game against the bullpen with Griffin Jacks, Orion Kerkering, and Johan Duran. It is a big year for guys like Josh Baez, who may have B potential, but after struggling a bit as a rookie, he's looking to turn things around in year 2. We have extended this game to the 11th, and Swanson is still in, allowing another run. Immediately after, they put in Jojo Romero, who will score another, and then 2 more, both on walks. Unfortunately, that might be the dagger, as we're down by 3 runs, and while we overcame that earlier in the game, we are down to our final out, they strike us out, and the Phillies win on opening day. All things considered though, Philadelphia is a really good team, so I liked what I saw. We matched their hit total on the day with 11, as Ivan Herrera had a 3-hit performance. And how about the youngsters? Joshua Baez and JJ Wetherholt, despite being the youngest players in our lineup, both secured 2 hits each and 3 and 2 RBIs. That would have been a great confidence boost on opening day, as we proceed to get swept by Philadelphia, so maybe nothing's changed. Now this is a very important year of development for our team, so I want to make sure I jump into a couple more games this year, as look at Victor Scott with the gap power. That came in the 9th inning against the White Sox, tying this game, and Scott advances to third. All we need now is a sacrifice fly to end it, as we get runners at the corners for Josh Baez, who continues his hot start to the year. I know it's only been a few weeks, but he's hitting 400, as there's a pop out, and we secure the victory. We defeated the only team in baseball with a better farm than us, as now it's time to go into scouting. Hopefully with another good year of scouting, we can take that title for ourselves, and once we get it, I don't plan on letting go of it. Just like last year, we're getting 2 discovery scouts along with the position scout with a max efficiency above 95. Starting things off, we're going to discover pitchers internationally, and opening up this draft class, we have the number 4 overall pick, so maybe a chance to get a generational talent. Looking through the class, I'm not really seeing a generational talent, although I really like this center fielder. I know we've got Victor Scott, but having another fast outfielder is never a problem, but while we do have the prime opportunity to take a really solid player, I do want to lock in and make sure it's the right guy. guy. The big thing about this center fielder that I like is while he has an 80 overall max, if you look at the low rating of his fielding, it is an 8. Now considering that his max fielding is 42, we know he's not going to be a good fielder, but the point is we can use that fielding rating to kind of make an assumption about his potential. I have not seen the game generate very many first round outfielders with that poor a fielding, so we can assume that the number's not going to be much worse than 42, putting Romeo Frieden on the high end of his potential. Once again, all that information can be found in my scouting guide, as he's probably not going to be 99 potential, but my guess is something in the low to mid 90s. And looking at his fielding rating, it is currently a max of 37. I would be shocked if it got much worse than that. Then on the discovery end of things, we find a really solid high floor starter, but maybe the bigger story is an insanely good closer. Keenan Freeman has a guaranteed high potential and high overall, which will likely make him a good player. That is a great pull to start discovery, as he'll likely be available late in the draft along with this reliever Steven Diaz. All things considered, that was a great first week of scouting, so hopefully our next week of discovery can be even better. Advancing forward, we would discover 4 total central pitchers, which is not the best, but at least Romeo Frieden goes up to number 2. That will pretty much solidify him as who I want at number 4, but of course there's a very good chance that he doesn't last, so I want to look at my other options. Looking at the entire rest of the draft class though, I'm not seeing a lot of other players that I like, so unless someone like Angel Guerrero's available, we might be taking a pitcher as our plan B. On a team that needs an ace though, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but there's just better ways that I like to spend my first round picks. Nearing the end of April, we are 9-18, and after winning a series against the Rockies, we are taking on the Dodgers. I 100% guarantee we're gonna lose this one, as we take one of the games at least, but we are still really bad. I figured we would still be last in our division, but I did not expect to be one of the worst teams in all of baseball, as Colorado is the only team worse than us. After another week of scouting, fortunately Angel Guerrero goes up to number 3, and considering we're picking at number 4, I feel pretty good about either him or Romeo falling to our selection. Then on the scouting end of things, we found a couple of infielders in Martin Valenzuela and Guillermo Macias. I am very excited about all the discovery, but now that it's week 5, we're gonna fire our discovery scouts and start looking at some pitchers. Now for the next 6 weeks, we're gonna be discovering pitchers, and this will be a lot more optimal now that we've already done the discovery. As for the position guys though, just going through the class, and Drew Saito looks pretty interesting. He is 21 years old with a guaranteed high potential, and even if the potential's not in the mid 90s, he would still be a really good high floor player, which I feel like we could use at third base. Considering that we're looking for a backup option in the first round, this might be a good one, but now I think we gotta jump into this game. We are down by 1 run in the bottom of the 8th, but Miguel Andujar slowly rolls us up the middle to score 1. We have tied it up, and now with runners at the corners, all Mason Wynn has to do is hit this sacrifice fly. As the runner's coming home, the throw is offline. The Cards are in a good spot, but there's 2 walks. It has been a rough start to the year for closer Matt Swanson, who has an ERA over 5, and this one nearly left the yard. The fly ball does get the tying runner on third, and the third baseman really should have made that play. I know it was a tough one, but I really wanted that. Now the Giants are threatening, and we need a double play, but Mason Wynn continues the streak of bad defense. Now he is one of the best defensive shortstops in the game, as Swanson walks in a run, so this one would look completely different if we just secured one of those double plays. They're trying to go up by 2, but that is an absolute missile. That will keep our deficit at 1 run going into the bottom of the 9th. It will make no difference though, as down to our final out, there's a swing and miss, and the Giants take a close one. The Cardinals can simply not get out of their own way as they fall to 11-23, but looking at the stats, I'm actually liking what I'm seeing so far. Now, even though the OPSs for guys like Alec Burleson and Lars Nootbaar are not great, it's been a solid start to the year for Ivan Herrera and Miguel Andujar. Add in the fact that young center fielder Victor Scott is finally hitting for power with 96 speed, and the fact that JJ Wetherholt's hitting 328 with an 891 OPS, and I can actually feel okay about this start to the year. Now we definitely need to make some changes because some players are not playing well, like Kyle Leahy, Matthew Liberatore, and Tanner Houck. That also extends to the bullpen, where we just saw Matt Swanson drop his ERA to 6.08. He has been pretty shaky, but honestly, I don't know who I'd replace him with. Almost everybody's doing terribly. Just for the time being, we're gonna feed the hot hand, moving Zach Eflin up to number 1, and Michael McGreevy can come up to number 2. Once again though, I don't even know how to approach the closer situation. I guess Riley O'Brien can move down for now. Definitely not feeling great about that. On the bright side though, it looks like the pitching staff could be getting some reinforcements pretty soon, as both Jurangelo St-J and Liam Doyle are on their way up. Now, if you didn't know, the story with St-J is that he's actually a switch pitcher, and you can see at the top, the game actually added that to his player card. Now, his left side is definitely not as strong as his right side, and that's gonna be the arm that he throws with in real life, so not a full-time switch pitcher, but I still think it's cool that's in the game. Both of those players could be on their way up to the show this season, but just for now, to add some more depth, let's go add Luis Garcia just because we signed him to a bigger contract. Now, the reason I'm doing this is, at least early on, I'm noticing that players with higher control seem to pitch better. Now, I don't know if there's any proof to this, but Zach Eflin and Michael McGreevy are both examples. Now that we've made a few changes, we are simulating forwards, staying on a losing streak at least until we beat Seattle. Hopefully that's a step in the right direction, as we're projected to win 65 games, and after simulating another week, look at this. Drew Saito is up to number 6 on our draft board, and I'm curious if he's one of those 21-year-old 99 potentials. Now, someone in my Twitter DMs pointed out to me that the game is now generating a different type of 99 potential talent. Seeing that his max potential dropped to 95, I'm very curious to learn more, and considering that his draft rank is holding him down, I think I like him just as much as the center fielder. I'm gonna scout him for a third week, because if he is 99 potential, then his rating should go right back up. Now for the moment of truth, there it is, 9770. Now I don't know if he's gonna be 99 potential, but what I do know is we've found the top 3 players in the class already. I am extremely thankful we found another first round option, because quite honestly, I would have been pretty stressed waiting for Frieden to drop. I think we've scouted just about everything that we need to in the first round, so I'm gonna start looking for selections for our second pick. Tanner Langston looks pretty good, so I'll throw him on the board, and with his spreader ratings, I feel like he's gonna have around 90 potential. We are scouting a really nice class so far, but we are 19-41 at the start of June. We are projected to win 63 games, which would somehow be 8 games worse than last year. Unfortunately, it does seem that the reason for this is that our offense is just not producing, as even though Victor Scott continues to hit for power along with Lars Nootbaar, there has been a major fall off for guys like Alec Burleson and Nolan Gorman from last year. Keep in mind that Gorman had the best season of his career last year, hitting 30 home runs and driving in 99 runs. This year though, an abysmal 197 average is holding his team back. We are not going to be in the finalists for any major awards except for maybe Rookie of the Year, where JJ Wetherholt ranks 3rd. Based on how our offense is playing, we gotta make some changes to the lineup, but I feel like our success is still contingent on Burleson and Nolan Gorman turning it around. Then at the bottom though, I'm seeing that the CPU decided to put Ezekiel Duran in place of JJ Wetherholt. That does not make any sense to me, and had he been there the whole time, he might be in first place for Rookie of the Year. I did not give the CPU permission to change my lineup, so I have no idea what happened, but there's a chance that has something to do with our poor performance. After a couple more adjustments, this is our lineup going forward, as we had to move Victor Scott up to 5 just because he's been playing really well. I will say that one of the only good things about this offense this year is everybody has B potential or above. We are 20 games back in our division at the start of June, taking on the Angels, who we do beat before getting beat by the Padres. So we beat a bad team before losing to a good one, and at least on the bright side, Tanner Langston goes up to rank number 12. Now we're looking for late round gems, and one thing I'm noticing about the shortstop class is there's some really solid potential players. That is definitely something to keep in mind, as looking at the rest of the draft class, there's a few good players here and there, but overall I've definitely seen better classes. The reason I say that is while the infield class is pretty solid, the outfield class has nothing to offer. There's not a single player that's draftable so far, at least until we get to the not ranked gems. I will definitely be scouting Richie Dietrich. I want to get to the not ranked gems at the end of the season, as going to right field, here is Carlos Sanchez, who might be the closest thing to a late round gem that we'll find. We are not a good team, and honestly that's disappointing, because I was expecting a lot better results. I really thought this could be the year that our young guys showed some development, but I'm pretty sure that every player I was excited about last year has taken a considerable step back. That includes Alec Burleson, who's getting the Barry Bonds treatment, and that will bring up lefty destroyer Miguel Andujar, who unfortunately does not live up to his name. We are now trying to send this to extras where Matt Svenson's having a tough time and blows it. No matter how close we get to a victory, we just can't seem to pull it off. I truthfully cannot figure out why Svenson's been this bad, as he is 82 overall, which is the second best player on our team, but that is after some really bad regression. He was 84 overall at the start of the year, and for anybody that needed a reminder, he was incredible last year and in 2025. Along with that though, the nightmare in our bullpen continues, as Jake Irvin was a bust in the Rule 5, along with Yariel Rodriguez, and Jojo Romero was not a good person to bring back. The only player that's performing right now is Mike Soroka, and you know what? Just because we can, he's gonna become our closer. I know it's not optimal, but it cannot be much worse than O'Brien or Swanson. Now on the scouting end of things, there's about 3 weeks to go until the MLB draft, so we are tripling up on position players. We are finishing the profile on Sanchez, along with trying to get draft ranks on Dietrich and Rocco Drew. Now that is a name with some serious aura, so I'm really hoping he's good so I can draft him. Unfortunately, simming forward, it looks like our luck is not changing, as we are currently on pace for 64 wins, but at least on the bright side, we're still scouting up a storm. Now that it's week 13, I like going back through my starting pitchers just to make sure that all the not ranked players got on my board. And fortunately, it does look like that, although there's a really good player that we didn't scout. The West only generated a couple of draftable pitchers, but I think I might have to scout this guy. He's looking like a guaranteed high ceiling player, and I never scout pitchers individually, but this time it actually makes sense. Now that regional pitching scout has been nerfed down to 10% per week, scouting a few pitchers at the end might actually become an optimal strategy. I think this scouting process has been the only good part of this year, as we are 31 and 59. On the 4th of July, we're in last place in our division by nearly 10 games, and checking out the rest of the league, we are the absolute worst. There is no team in baseball worse than us, so at least on the bright side, we might get the #1 pick. Before the draft, I'm also checking out our farm system, where we have climbed to rank #1. So even though we're not playing well on the field, a bunch of nerds think that we have a pretty bright future. Now that we're in the last week of scouting, I'm realizing that we could really use a high floor starter, and checking out Craig Michaels' player card, there's a chance for him to be an extremely good player. Right now, he's got a max potential of 98, but also a max overall of 75. He is probably going to be a low 70 overall and a low 90s potential. My #1 target is still going to be Romeo Frieden, but there's a really good chance he'll be gone at #4. Additionally, while I do really like Drew Saito, just based on the profile, he's probably going to be high 80s, low 90s potential, and honestly a very similar player to Diego Hernandez. The only difference between them is Saito is 21 years old and does have a slightly higher floor. Going into the draft, we actually ended off on a 6-game win streak, which is really impressive. Going into scouting though, our boy Craig Michaels goes up to #2. He is basically just the pitching version of Romeo Frieden, so if both players are sitting on the board at #6, then I'm gonna have a tough time. That makes it a little bit easier. Frieden went #1 to the White Sox, and now we're on the clock at #4 with Craig Michaels available. I am going against so much that I stand for in this video by not only drafting a pitcher high, but also scouting a pitcher individually. That is something that I almost never do, but with only 45% accuracy on everybody else, I might have to edit my scouting guide to include scouting a couple of pitchers at the very end. We're pulling the trigger on Craig Michaels, and I'm so glad that we did. Even if he's a high 80s potential, that's probably still good enough to be our ace, and if we want to open our championship window, we have to be competitive. I'm also realizing that I forgot to make a draft queue, so I'm gonna do that real quick and then move on to the next round. With my next selection, I could take shortstop Tanner Langston, although I think we learned our lesson from last year about taking a guy with a slightly lower max potential. More than likely, we might end up taking a closer, as we do have a discovery guy on the board, but Franco and Birch both look pretty good. As far as the late round gems go, I did find a few shortstops that I like in Rocco Drew and Hugo Leggett, and while they're very similar prospects, Leggett is 22, so I would prefer to take Drew. Either one of those guys would be fine, but my biggest priority is taking center fielder Richie Dietrich. There's a chance that he could have Victor Scott level speed, and while he's very rough around the edges, the high ceiling as a switch hitting center fielder with speed is extremely intriguing. Plus, he went up to rank #66, so I'm very interested in what he can bring to the table. We are awaiting our selection, but Seattle goes and snipes Tanner Langston. Fortunately, that is not who who we wanted, but in an interesting turn of events, Saito is still on the board. That is definitely surprising as the number 34 player in the class, but he will almost certainly go in competitive round B. Simming forward to our selection, our board did not move at all. Saito is still available. You're telling me that the guy that I considered taking at number 4 is still on the board at number 41? I scouted him for 3 weeks, so I know for a fact that our scouts didn't mess this up. So ladies and gentlemen, we are getting an absolute steal in the second round. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. We take the number 5 player in the class at 41, and now simming forward, our board is still intact. Now we've got some really good options here because Bryce Fuchs, I'm gonna assume is how you say it, because I don't think it's the other way I'm thinking of. He ended up being really good when we fully scouted him. He was already a guaranteed high potential player, but his range only got better as we scouted him more. He is likely gonna be a really good player, but considering that we already took a pitcher in the first round, I think that drafting for need here makes the most sense, and as we've seen this season, we could really use help in the bullpen. I'm not exactly sure which closer to take here since they're both lefties who are ranked extremely similarly, and nearly a minute later, I am still hitting the trigger. It really shouldn't matter which one we take, but if one of them ends up being way better than the other, I think I'm gonna regret it. I have 5 seconds left. Franco's gap between his overall and potential's bigger. I am taking him at the buzzer. Really hoping I don't regret that, and simming forward, Fuchs and Birch are both still available, just in case I wanted to come back. If I pass on Birch twice and he ends up being amazing, I don't think I could forgive myself, but I gotta go with the starting pitcher here. That is just way too good of a value for what could potentially be a long-term ace. Now simming to round 4, surely Birch is gone. Of course he is, but now it's time to go into our position players, and I can't wait on Richie Dietrich any longer. He is number 66 in the class, and I gotta go get him. His potential might be 95, and I know it's only the 4th round, but I don't think we're giving up the spot for number 1 farm system anytime soon. Now in round 5, we're going for the best player available, which is Rocco Drew, so we get a quality shortstop, and then to end things off, I am taking, well, I thought the closer was gonna be here. Apparently he still is, but I'm still gonna take Russell Capel. I would not be shocked if this draft class topped the first one, as we got incredibly lucky, but considering that we're 37 and 60 at the break, even after a 6-game win streak, I think we needed all the luck we could get. We have the 2nd worst record in all of baseball, but looking at the statistics, I do see that a couple of players I complained about are now on hot streaks. That might have explained our win streak before the break, and I'm just really hoping that that continues, because even though I want the number 1 overall pick, I want this team to be worth rooting for even more. Sorting by home runs, Nolan Gorman is once again on top, and despite a bit of a down year, it does seem that he's picking it back up. I'm a big Nolan Gorman fan, so this is encouraging as he's up to 78 overall. Then right behind him though, Josh Baez is actually in 2nd place in home runs with 10. Despite taking over 70 fewer at bats, he's also 5 RBIs behind him, so maybe he is breaking out as well. Just a reminder that while he's 23 years old, he's actually younger than JJ Wetherholt. Speaking of JJ though, now that he's in a full-time role, he is also heating up, and hopefully that means that he can win Rookie of the Year. Checking out the awards, Matt Olson is looking to end Shohei Ohtani's reign of MVPs, but Yoshinobu Yamamoto is 11-0 and on top for the Cy Young. Then we've got Reliever of the Year Ben Joyce, who is a potential in this game. That is very well deserved, and going over to Rookie of the Year, Wetherholt is still in 3rd place. Unfortunately though, despite being a potential, I can't see him knocking off Won Young Ha. It has been a really fun year for the Nationals' 3rd baseman, as JJ is trailing by 12 home runs and 35 RBIs. Going into All-Star voting, I don't know which player made the game this year. It was Michael Soroka. Very interestingly, I don't think this was by default, as he's actually having a very nice season, as he might be the only bright spot of a bullpen that simply cannot figure it out. Going through the rest of voting, I'm curious if we have anybody else. The regulars like Ketel Marte and Mookie Betts are here, but I'm not seeing any other Cardinals. That will bring us into the second half, where we're trying to keep this win streak alive, and immediately we lay a goose egg against KC before winning 10-4. That will take us into draft pick signing, and I cannot believe that we got Michael Pujols and Saito. That was an absolutely insane pull, and in the event that we can sign both of them, we have a very good class on our hands. I'm looking forward to seeing the draft results and the second half, but before we get there, we have some very tough decisions to make. Last year was my first time using the new trade system, and honestly, I kinda laid a goose egg. I put Dustin May on the block with only a few days before the deadline, and as you would expect, it did not work out. This year though, I need to be on top of it, and the only player with an expiring contract that makes sense to trade is Lars Nootbaar. Now I will say that he's having a really nice season, hitting .304 with an .813 OPS, so this might be a situation where a terrible team like us just sells high on him. There is no reason for him to want to come back in free agency, so I'm adding Lars to the block along with a couple of other players who I just want to shop around. Nolan Gorman and Alec Burleson both have 2 years before free agency, and while I appreciate their power, this rebuild might take a little bit longer than previously thought. Additionally, Eric Lauer's in the last year of his contract, and he's playing a lot better, so I think I'll add him to the block as well. Now, just because I'm curious, I gotta check out the trade block, and there's some absolutely absurd players on here. I do suppose it makes sense for a few losing teams to shop their best players, as it doesn't necessarily mean they're gonna get dealt, but just compared to previous games, it is so insane seeing people like Francisco Lindor. We're certainly not good enough to be buyers at the deadline, so to keep this realistic, I'm gonna avoid these top tier players, but I will go ahead and add a few prospects to my list just to see what I can get back. Aside from just the pitchers though, I also see that the Dodgers have Zaire Hope here available. He is on the trade block for some reason, and at 68 overall with 8 potential, I think I gotta make him a target. I would love to make a deal with the Dodgers. I truly don't think we'll acquire any of these targets since I will veto any trade I deem unrealistic, but I kinda just want to see what happens. Before we advance though, I would like to try and make an offer involving Nootbaar, as the Padres could really use a left fielder. It would be nice to acquire someone like George Lombard Jr., although I don't think they would make that deal for a rental, so I'm checking out the players they have on their trade block, and this 18-year-old starting pitcher makes a lot more sense. He is pretty raw at 63 overall, and he has beat potential, and like I said before, we don't need a project starting pitcher, but it doesn't hurt to get more. Pitchers are always going to have a lot of value, and we're going to see if this deal for Nootbaar straight up gets it done. The Padres are a really good fit, and as a team pushing for the playoffs, they could really use a player of his caliber. Simming a couple days, they have rejected our deal. Now, I'm not saying I'm surprised, but honestly, good for the CPU. That is a bit too high of a price to give up, so maybe we go for the 24-year-old instead. I know he's 24, but it's still something, and ultimately I just want to move on from Nootbaar. We're not getting any comp picks from him, so it's not worth keeping him around. Simulating forward, that deal is accepted. And look, they're even taunting me. Hard to say no when a deal comes our way like that. Appreciate the generosity. They're saying I got fleeced. I really don't think I did. Nootbaar is just a rental, and we get a pitcher who may not be the highest ceiling player in the world, but at least it's something. Additionally, we've received another offer, this time from the Giants, and that looks horrible. I have thrown in Burleson and Gorman, who have 2 years of service remaining, along with a reliever, and all they could stomach was this 63 overall C potential and Adrian Hauser, who is literally 34 years old and in a contract year. That is going to be a hard no from me, although I'm curious if I could counter. Right as I begin looking for a counter though, I see that they have Rafael Devers and Matt Chapman, so I don't know what the CPU is doing. That is an easy decline. With Lars Nootbaar out of the lineup, Herrera moves up to leadoff, and Ezekiel Duran will bat 9th, with Jordan Walker platooning against lefties. It certainly wasn't pretty, but I am proud of myself for making a trade, although I assume that I'm not going to get offers on any of my other players. If I find the right fit, I'm extremely tempted to trade Burleson and Gorman, and looking at the Marlins, they're looking to make a playoff push with Abe Toro and Connor Norby. They would be a great fit for both Burleson and Gorman, although if we do make this move, just looking at our organization, we are cooked. If we're gonna make this move, they need to back up the dump truck, and Braxton Garrett's just the start. Remember that just last year, these players combined for 54 home runs and 150 RBIs, so this should be a pretty big package. If this one's happening, they need to give me Braxton Garrett along with Kaba and a center fielder as a throw-in. I will not accept anything less than that, as I truly don't want to trade these players, but gotta do what I gotta do for my team. With 2 days before the deadline, I would be shocked if they accept this, this, as just like last year, I have a buzzer beater trade offer and they reject it. Now, to be fair, I don't think the value was offensive in any way, as I offered an 80 overall and a 78 overall in exchange for a pitcher that was on their block anyways, along with a shortstop that was pretty much blocked in their organization. Regardless, we did a pretty good job of trying to dump some salaries at the deadline, and on August 2nd, we are 44-69. So this season has been a complete wash, as viewing the draft picks is the last good thing we get to do. I am really hoping this draft was as good as I thought it was, and opening it up, Franco was a bust. I had to choose between two closers, and it seems that I chose the wrong one. We desperately need some bullpen arms, and that was the only thing that prevented this draft class from being completely perfect. Starting at the top, we took Craig Michaels, who ends up being 70 overall with 93 potential. I cannot even begin to say how big that is, as he might be at the show earlier than some of the prospects we have in the system. That was the best number 4 pick we could have made, and Drew Saito sticking around at 41 was an incredible gift. I'm certainly disappointed about Franco, as I was expecting him to be a lot better than he was, and I truly thought he was the safer selection than the other guy. Going through the rest of the class though, the Pirates got a 94 potential reliever, and Milwaukee just got the most insane one I've ever seen. 86 overall at 93 potential, that should not be happening for a guy who is 22 years old. I'm definitely not a fan of that realism, as getting to Alonzo Birch, I think we got the only bad closer in the class. That is something that has not happened to me in such a long time in playing MLB The Show, as just like I said in my draft guide, when in doubt, take a closer. That technique has now worked out for me about 99 times out of 100. Fortunately though, I do think the rest of the class made up for it, as Brian Fuchs' 95 potential and 55 overall. I am so glad we found him late in the class, and just for a tip, if you use my scouting method and you go back through the class, make sure you scout a couple of pitchers that you like. We did our due diligence with Craig Michaels and Fuchs, and it seemed to have worked out. Then for the rest of the class, we took Richie Dietrich, who is 55 overall, and while he's incredibly raw, that's a great place for a project player to start. That is of course in comparison to Rocco Drew, who's only 48 overall. He's gonna take a long time to develop, and there's a chance he might never reach the show. All things considered though, that's perfectly fine, because we ended the class strong with Russell Capel. There's no other way to put it. While our offense is starting to get better, it's definitely too little too late, as even though it seems our players are developing, we are on pace to win far fewer games than last year. Victor Scott is up to 79 overall, while JJ Wetherholt goes from 74 to 77, so that is definitely the silver lining of all of these losses. Then going over to the rotation, Zach Eflin's been pretty solid, stepping in as our ace just out of necessity, but I'm also seeing a really good season from Matthew Liberatore. He has gone from 77 to 79 overall, but unfortunately those are the only two guys really worth talking about. The same can be said in the bullpen, where Michael Soroka has found a brand new career as a closer. He began his career as a starter, transitioning to a reliever, and now he's the closer on the Cardinals. Obviously, I'm hoping that Swanson will eventually earn that job back, but so far it has not happened. While they've gotten better with time, it's ultimately been a really disappointing season for the bullpen, but at least we have the #1 farm system, and just look at these gains all around. So many guys have gone up by 2, 3, 4 overall, so even though the future's in a bit of question right now, guys like St. Just and Doyle should be on the way up, along with Rainiel Rodriguez. Seeing all the young talent on the team makes me excited for the future, as we finish with 65 wins, and in a season where I was hoping to win about 80 games, we somehow got worse. Looking down the board, the offense was actually pretty good in terms of OPS, with several players over 700, but looking at the RBI and home run numbers, it looks like we had some challenges scoring runs. Not only did we fail to score runs though, we also allowed a ton. This rotation is still lacking an ace, as Matthew Liberatore and Zach Eflin both did their best, but in a good rotation, they're no better than the 4 and 5s. I gotta give credit to Michael Soroka for being the highlight of the pitching staff, as even though he got a little bit worse in the second half, he was still as close to consistent as it got. That will take us into October, where we're sitting on our couch watching our division rival win the World Series. That is a painful end to a painful season, as two Braves were 1 and 2 for the MVP, and in the American League, Aaron Judge rebounds after losing it to Giancarlo Stanton Stanton. Crochet and Webb win the Cy Youngs. Reliever of the year was Ben Joyce, with Cade Smith now on the Yankees. Then for Rookie of the Year, I didn't see a notification that Wetherholt won it, and he stayed right in third place. Regardless, I am excited for his future, as he went up by 4 overall this season, and his stats really became a lot more balanced. He got better in almost every single way and put up a 761 OPS in his first year at the show. Jose Altuve retires and becomes a Hall of Famer, and that will bring us straight into the offseason. There's only 2 guys for us to negotiate with, and after last year, I absolutely will not be bringing back Romero. I learned my lesson from last year, as he put up a 4.75 ERA, but I will offer a contract to Eric Lauer. Now that we're in the offseason though, I want to keep hearing offers for guys like Nolan Gorman and Alec Burleson, along with other players on short-term deals like Eflin and Andujar. Additionally, we've also reached the point where Mason Wynn and Matthew Liberatore only have 2 years before free agency. Ironically, the Cardinals trading all their players is the reason I felt the need to make this video, but now 2 years in, I'm going to be doing the same thing. The current core of this team is simply not going to win a World Series, so while a fire sale is not guaranteed, I'm going to try to make a couple of moves in the offseason. Out of the group, I feel like Gorman is one of the more tradable players, but Mason Wynn and Matthew Liberatore are definitely the players with the most value. But simming forward, we're focusing on Nolan Gorman first, and the Yankees just offered a terrible deal. We are not giving them Gorman and Liberatore for a shortstop prospect and a relief pitcher. I do have some offers on the table, but we'll see if any of them get accepted. Honestly, at this point, I'm not expecting it, and the Yankees get Joe Ryan. That is a blockbuster deal, as our second trade gets declined. Simming forward, most of my offers got rejected, but I did get this one in for Miguel Andujar. Now, the Orioles are seeking a left fielder, but this seems like a little bit much to give up. They're giving us a B potential starting pitcher along with a closer, and I know that Andujar's coming off of a 70 RBI season, but I just feel like maybe that's a little overkill. I do see they're seeking a reliever though, so I'll throw in Yariel Rodriguez. Simming forward a couple days, and they counter it without the pitcher. Completing this trade would take us below the minimum requirement. Okay, but I'm giving you a reliever. That doesn't make any sense. Nonetheless, Boston gets Adley Rutschman. However, I finally have an offer on the table from the Orioles that I actually like. We're getting a decent starting pitcher prospect and a closer in exchange for Alec Burleson. That is a very nice deal for us, as Burleson's getting a good amount of money after a career best season 2 years ago. Getting a quality starting pitcher remains our biggest need, and while we're not going to get someone like Nick Lodolo for 6 years, I do see a few options further down that are asking for shorter term deals. We are targeting Pablo Lopez and Sandy Alcantara, along with a really cheap left fielder in Nathan Lucas. If we do trade Miguel Andujar, we're gonna need a replacement, and Lucas is not only cheap, but is coming off a really nice season with the Giants. Advancing forward, we get a trade offer accepted for Mason Wynn. I was shopping him around, but we deal him for 75 overall Cole Young, along with a really quality reliever. It may not be the flashiest move, but that's one that I feel like had to happen, as Wynn has 2 years of arbitration remaining, and I can't see him being a part of our World Series core. Meanwhile, we pull in Cole Young, who is very similar offensively, but I would definitely say that his bat has a lot more upside. Additionally, we have him for the next 4 years, so at least in my opinion, that alone makes it a good deal, but add in the fact that we get a really solid relief pitcher, and I feel like that's a trade we had to make. With Cole Young and JJ Wetherholt, we have built one of the youngest middle infields in the league, and I think JJ will slide over to short. We have traded the first big piece of the offseason, as I'm still shopping Nolan Gorman and probably Andujar and Matthew Liberatore. With that offer getting accepted, I also have one on the table for Miguel Andujar, and in return, it would net us a really promising young shortstop. We're bulking up in the infield, but we're also asking for some veterans like Blaze Alexander and Jose Quijada. Gotta make sure that our team doesn't suck too bad next year. That trade would get accepted, although they had to remove the reliever from the deal. Going back to free agency, we are slowly but surely gaining interest on Lopez, Lucas, and Alcantara. There is some interest for Lopez though, so hopefully the Rays do not offer a deal before we can. I'm really hoping we can get one of those players, but before we sim forward, I'm gonna take a flyer on Jordan Hicks. He may be 68 overall, but he's still 31 years old with B potential, and that's the exact type of player we're trying to bring in. We will offer him a 2-year deal worth $780,000 $180K a year. That will address the bullpen, but remember that we also just lost Alec Burleson, so I do want to find a replacement at first, and let's get freaky in the sheets. Gavin Sheets is 67 overall with B potential, and at 31 years old, I still feel like we could revive his career. Let's give him a 2-year deal worth about $2 million a year. He will accept that, so midway through the offseason, this is what our lineup projects at, but do note we could add another player if Nathan Lucas does sign. Additionally, we might still move Nolan Gorman, along with Liberatore in our rotation. I want to shop Nolan Gorman to a team, and it looks like the White Sox would be a really good fit. They have gone out spending big money on Joe Adell and Zach Gallen trying to become a contender, and with the number 2 farm system in the league, they have a lot to give. Specifically, they have a lot of young pitchers that they'd be willing to move, so I'm offering Nolan Gorman for Willie Kaiser, along with a 23-year-old right fielder. I do feel like this deal makes sense, but then I'm gonna put another offer on the table, including Matthew Liberatore. Now, in theory, this would allow us to get a lot more in return, as I'm seeking Noah Schultz and 24-year-old Braden Montgomery. However, for the first offer, I want to see if they'd give us just a little bit more, as I'm seeking another player in Caleb Bonamere. That will give us 3 trade offers on the board, and advancing forward, they are countering our offer with Matthew Liberatore. Honestly, I'm not exactly sure what the reasoning is for this, as Liberatore was not included in the first deal. The game's not cooperating, so I'm going to try to make that trade a bit later, but for now, I want to make sure we sign Pablo Lopez. We do get the 5% boost, but before we get to his decision, it is time for the draft lottery, where we're tied for the number 1 odds. Even though it seemed like we tried our best, we did not finish with baseball's worst record, as the Twins and the Rockies won 4 games less than we did. Thankfully though, we still have the same chance to get the number 1 pick, and simulating forward, let's see what's gonna happen. We fall to number 5. The Mets and the Nationals both jump us. We get some really bad luck for the lottery, as Lopez's decision is coming in, and we're getting a call on the phone. He signs with the Athletics. We miss out on Pablo, but fortunately Sandy Alcantara is ready, and he's significantly cheaper. I am bumping his offer up to $23.5 per year, and now we're also making an offer for Nathan Lucas. Those could be the 2 guys that we sign, as the decision's coming in on one of them. There's pen to paper. Who's it gonna be? Give me Alcantara. There he is. We secure the number 22 free agent in the class, and now Lucas's decision is also gonna be the same result. We're doing our best to get these trades accepted, and there's a big one for Jermaine Ridley. He was a first-round pick a few years ago, and he becomes the player that we deal Matthew Liberatore for. Additionally, they also needed a reliever, so we gave them Yariel Rodriguez, and sipping forward another day, we cannot get Gorman just yet. Eflin and Gorman are still very much on the block, but unfortunately, we fail to trade any of them before spring training. Regardless, we're entering season 3 with some pretty major roster changes, and we'll keep an eye on Gorman and Eflin throughout the year. They could certainly still get dealt, although it's probably gonna be for a lower price. That was my first time seriously using the trade finder, and I gotta say that while there's definitely some kinks to work out, I really enjoyed shopping my players. Checking out the trade haul, we moved on from 5 players in 4 deals, and starting with the Alec Burleson move, we got a 62 overall starter, but the headline of this one was an A potential closer. Ryan Corona was a guy I considered drafting in our first class, and after missing terribly on Giancarlo Franco, we get Corona on the team. Then after that though, we made our biggest trade that made the fire sale possible, trading Mason Wynn to Seattle for 2 players with Cole Young as the headliner. Honestly, I'm expecting him to come in right away and put up pretty similar offensive numbers. So that being said, I do believe in the long haul that we're gonna win this trade. Then for our third deal, Miguel Andujar became an Oriole, and the return in this deal is a player who could be the shortstop of the future. I really like the balanced stats that Aloy brings to the table, plus the very good defense. He's kind of feeling like Mason Wynn light, so I'm very excited about him, as we ended off with maybe our best player of the entire cycle, acquiring 71 overall starter Jermaine Ridley. This was the player we got for Matthew Liberatore, and quite fittingly, he is looking like an ace of the future. That being said, we're entering season number 3 with a completely different lineup, as we may still have players like Nolan Gorman and Ivan Herrera, but they could also be on the move within the first half of the year. Now leading off, we have former Mariner Cole Young, along with free agent Nathan Lucas in the 2 slot. I've complained about the offense the past couple years, but this is definitely our worst unit yet, as we have Gavin Sheets playing in left field, and the bench is not looking a whole lot better. Then against lefties, Blaze Alexander Slugger is leading off, who we acquired in a trade with the Orioles, and while Herrera and Gorman are still near the top, I feel even worse about facing lefties than I do against righties. After a fire sale, we're basically starting from scratch, although I do like this rotation quite a bit. We do have Sandy Alcantara on a 2-year deal, as he didn't get much interest from other teams, and while Zach Eflin is still here, he could also be traded before the deadline. Then in the bullpen, things aren't looking too different, although we did add Jordan Hicks in free agency and acquired Jose Quijada through trade. Michael Soroka will be our opening day closer. This team is looking about as bleak as you can get, but at the very least, our farm system is absolutely booming. We have 4 guys in the top 6 and add another 6 in the top 16. Through a combination of good drafts and trading for prospects, we are at 16 guys in the top 100, so we stand alone at number 1, and it's not even close. Considering that we're rebuilding, our next wave of prospects should be on their way up to the show pretty soon, and I'm talking about Jurangelo St-J and Liam Doyle, along with closing pitcher Sammy Aguilar and catcher Rainiel Rodriguez. Ivan Herrera is an absolute beast in real life, but for some reason he's gone down to C potential. I really don't know why that is, but MLB The Show just doesn't seem to like his defense, and that's holding the rest of his ratings down. Also, I know we just drafted him, but keep an eye out for Drew Saito at third base. Considering that he's A potential, he could be moving pretty fast through the system, especially if we end up trading Nolan Gorman. Then at shortstop, we can say the same thing for Vaheba Aloy, who we just acquired in a trade, and even though I've seen his name a bunch, I admit that I did have to look up a pronunciation guide. It is opening day as we're jumping into Sandy Alcantara's first start with the Cardinals, and so far he's doing pretty good, giving up a double to Canzone, but getting out of it. We are starting our season with a bit of a challenge against a lefty, but JJ Wetherholt annihilates that baseball. That is a lefty-lefty home run going into right center field. I know it's a massive stretch to say this, but if Wetherholt can break out this season, we might not be back in rebuild mode. Now, the reason I say that is we were missing a lot in the first couple seasons, but maybe above all else was a true superstar. Coming off a season where he finished 3rd in Rookie of the Year voting, Wetherholt flashed that potential, so maybe another year of progression could turn him into the face of the team. Now, on a very similar note, I'm also really excited about Cole Young, who does fly out to left field, but I'm still looking forward to seeing what he can do. He was definitely the odd man out of a loaded Seattle infield, but as the key piece in the Mason Wynn return, we are really hoping that he can do big things. In a very impressive Cardinals debut, Sandy Alcantara went 5 scoreless innings before getting pulled, but unfortunately, our bullpen gave up the tying run. With a man on second, we are looking to strike back, but that is a great diving play by Ronnie Mauricio to get Toronto out of the inning. That is going to send us to the top of the 8th, and I don't trust our bullpen. They have a man on first and make it runners at the corners before they ice it. Just like we always see, our bullpen chokes away the lead as we gave up a grand salami in the same inning. Just ignore the final score, this game was a lot closer than it looked, but despite 5 scoreless innings from Alcantara, we lose the game by 8. Just putting it plain and simple, we have to do a lot better than scoring only 1 run off of 7 hits, as the new look offense is gonna take some time to gel together, but that performance is simply unacceptable. We had plenty of base runners in that game, but still managed to strand all of them, as our only run of the day was on a JJ Wetherholt home run. Not to mention, that came pretty early on, so I'm not feeling good about the offense early on in the season. We are entering scouting with the number 5 pick in the first round, as we fell 2 slots in the lottery. Looking through the options at the top though, so far I'm not seeing any generational talents, as the first player that I'm scouting is Hoyt Barton. He is far from what I'd consider a blue chip talent, but he does have a max potential of 99 and a max overall of 73. He has a chance to be a really solid player to start out, as we are losing so many games, finally winning our first series against Washington and Texas. That will bring our record to 6-9 as Barton holds his rating, and on the discovery end of things, we just found 8 international pitchers. There's a couple of studs at the top in Ramon Portillo and Andres Perez, so hopefully our luck is just as good in other regions. Just as always, discovery pitchers are extremely important as we sweep the Rangers, and now we're taking on the Dodgers, splitting the series 1-1 and losing. I will say though that we're starting to turn things around, getting close to 500, and we're only 4.5 games out of our division. Additionally, Hoyt Barton is the number 6 player player in the class, so I would honestly be perfectly fine taking him at number 5. That is not a bad start to the scouting cycle, but I'm hoping that there's somebody even better, as in last year's class, we managed to get Saito in the 2nd round. Also, I wish I was kidding when I say this, but there are only a couple players near the 1st round that are even worth scouting. Alonso Herrera is one of 2, and just looking at his stat spread, I don't even think that he'll be very good. After the first month of the season, we are 14-19, which is 6.5 games back in the NL Central. We are currently projected to win 68 games, which certainly would not be great, but it would still be a 3-game improvement from last year. All of that would be coming despite trading 4 of our most important players. And looking at the stats, going up to the top, Nolan Gorman and JJ Wetherholt are both playing extremely well. In the case of Gorman, he's playing towards either an extension or perhaps increasing his trade value. He has been really good in this franchise, as he did have a bit of a down year last year, but in 2026, he put up 30 bombs and 99 RBIs. He's currently on pace to do even better than that, as Gavin Sheets is also swinging a hot bat, along with Blaze Alexander. Then in the rotation, it's been a bit of a rough start for Zach Eflin, but the important thing here is Kyle Leahy and Sandy Alcantara are both dealing. Very good starts to the year for them, although our bullpen, once again, just like our rotation, is a mixed bag. After scouting Alonso Herrera, I will not be pursuing him, as he is ranked 23rd on the board, so we are completely out of options near the top of the draft. We are unfortunately dealing with one of the weakest position player classes I think I've ever seen, as there are no shortstops and no third basemen that I even like. Going over to second base, the same exact thing is gonna apply, and I would not be shocked if first base was any different. Scrolling through, I'm seeing a lot of maxes in the 80s, finally there's a 94, but the best chance to get somebody good might actually be Champlin Cortez. He is a not ranked gem, but unfortunately with a max overall of 47, I can't see the game giving him a draft rank. Usually for the not ranked gems, I'm looking for players that are 50 overall and above, but finally we might have found a couple position guys that are worth adding to the board. Both of them are catchers, and starting out with Miguel Trejo, he has a max potential of 99 and a max overall of 55. Plus, with a couple of single digit lows, this rating spread looks pretty realistic, so why not give him a couple weeks? Additionally though, just to try and uncover a few more players, we're gonna actually discover for a couple extra weeks. Obviously with the new draft guide, I'm still experimenting with when to do this, as there's a blockbuster trade for Michael King. As I was mentioning though, I usually only discover position players internationally, but this terrible draft class has created much more desperate times. Unfortunately, we did not get anybody from that, and so far in MLB The Show, I don't think I've found any good discovery position guys. Just for an experiment, we're gonna try one more week, but while our draft class has not been good, we are 19-21. I cannot believe that we are 2 games behind 500 as we win a series against Seattle. We're still in last place, but if we can keep this up, I have very good hope about the future. Checking out Miguel Trejo, he's number 128 on the board, so not the best, but still likely a high potential guy. And looking at discovery, it looks like nothing changed. 3 weeks of position player discovery led us absolutely nowhere, so we are unfortunately empty-handed going into pitcher scouting. Considering that the Cardinals declared themselves as a rebuilding team, I'm surprised that they're winning this many games, and even more shocked that the highlight is not on the draft. There's still a chance to save it, but this class has been anything but spectacular. We are 22-24 though, winning a series against Minnesota before losing one against Miami. However, after 2 wins against Milwaukee, we are officially at 500. I am completely stunned by this, considering that we were supposed to be one of the worst teams in the entire league. However, it seems that all we needed to do to get better was trade some of our best players, as that opened up spots in the lineup for either our younger players, or in the case of Cole Young, he has fully capitalized on his first chance to start. He is hitting .279 with a .766 OPS, while also ranking 3rd on the team in RBIs. It has been an impressive season for him, along with our entire infield, as Ivan Herrera and Nathan Lucas are also starting to heat up. Additionally, Gavin Sheets has an .832 OPS as our brand new first baseman, effectively replacing Alec Burleson. However, maybe the biggest key to our turnaround has been the rotation. Out of our starters, Zach Eflin has been the weakest link, but even he is starting to turn things around, getting on a hot streak. Then of course, there's Kyle Leahy Gray and Sandy Alcantara, along with Michael McGreevy, who's been pretty consistent the entire rebuild. Our rotation has been one of the best in baseball, but going to the bullpen, it's a completely different story. However, now that we're 500, I feel like we have to be aggressive and make a move to improve this team, as I am calling up our second draft pick of the video, Sammy Aguilar. He will become the first draft pick that we've made to make it to the MLB. That is the type of move we've been waiting for, as Jordan Hicks will become a long reliever and Sammy Aguilar moves up to be a regular reliever. Also, with Matt Swanson playing the best out of everybody, I'm gonna give him the chance to be our closer again, which is where Aguilar could eventually end up. There are no more late round gems available, so I may as well try to improve my first round selection. Unfortunately, one of the players I was thinking about taking is injured, and Hoyt Barton's potential is just not very high. Like I said before, all of the players that I looked at are simply too good to be true, and actually, Alejandro Valenzuela's not bad. He's got a max potential of 99, and looking at his stats, unlike some other players like Ray Enriquez, for example, I'm not really seeing any outliers. I am extremely tempted to scout Valenzuela, as going through the starting pitchers, I already have the information that I need. He is quite literally my only option, as the other guy, Andres Espinosa, is almost certainly a bust with high 90s in his fielding. Unlike him though, Valenzuela doesn't have any of that, and I'm kinda wondering if I got these two confused. They've got very similar names, so maybe I thought they were the same player. Just for a bit of a Hail Mary, we're gonna add him to the board, and I'm really hoping that he amounts to something. Advancing forward though, there's actually a lot at stake, as we're going up against the Cubs, and with Mike Soroka on the mound, we win that series 3-1. I cannot believe I'm saying this, but we are just 2.5 games back in the division. We are now on pace to win 78 games, so whether we make the playoffs or not, we are already seeing significant improvement from this team. However, I am feeling a bit skeptical, as our entire lineup is going on a cold streak. We are entering our final week of scouting, throwing a really intriguing not ranked reliever on the board, and after a week of scouting Valenzuela, his rating stays in the same spot that it was. That is at least a good sign for the shortstop, as his rating could either go up or down. We are simulating to the big day, winning a series against Miami and Pittsburgh. Checking out our draft board, I would love to take Carlos Colon at number 5, although he's not going to be available. Given his skill set, he is almost certainly going to be gone, although we have something very interesting at the top. I definitely got Valenzuela confused with his other shortstop counterpart, Andres Espinosa, and I'm so glad I went back and looked at his player card, because he had all the tells of being a solid player. All of his ratings are extremely balanced, and he's a much safer selection at number 5. I do like Hoyt Barton, but the ceiling is just not as high, and as a contact first left fielder with very little defense, his profile was not interesting at all. We will plan to take Valenzuela, but in the event that he's gone, I'm perfectly fine with Barton, although it wouldn't be a flashy first rounder. Then for the rest of the board, unless Carlos Colon falls, I'm not planning on taking a pitcher until way late in the draft, unless someone like Von Reese is available at 40 or 78. The reason I'm perfectly okay not taking a pitcher is Thomas Ryan's probably going to be available late in the draft, along with a few other not ranked options. Then on the position player side of things, I definitely want to take Aldo Maldonado, although rather than being a normal not ranked player, he's a discovery guy, and in case you didn't know, while not ranked players tend to last until late in the draft, for some reason or another, they tend to go a little bit earlier. This is something I actually just figured out while making my scouting tutorial, but looking through the draft class, it is very left field heavy. However, the infield has literally nothing, which is why it's so important we take Valenzuela. He's one of my favorite players in the class, and we gotta make sure we get Sammy Klein somewhere near the end of the draft. Catchers do tend to last a while, so I feel like drafting him in the 4th or 5th round would be perfectly fine, as we can hopefully end things strong drafting Thomas Ryan. Getting Colon at number 5 would be completely unrealistic, but I have seen crazier things happen in this game. In the likely event that we don't get him though, I do have a backup plan, as Valenzuela should be available, but in the event that he's not, I will go with my original plan. Minnesota starting the draft off, taking Carlos Colon. I'm definitely not surprised. He's gonna have a high potential and high overall, making him an enticing blue chip player, and now at number 2, the Mets completely choke. They jumped us just to take an injured pitcher, and big surprise here, one of the guys I wanted in the 2nd round is gone. Von Reese just went way earlier than expected, and simming forward, that is 4 pitchers to start it out. Fortunately for us, that does mean that Alejandro Valenzuela is available, and I'm gonna waste no time making him our guy. I'm expecting high 80s to low 90s potential, and hopefully 69 overall. I am so glad that I checked the beginning of the draft class because Valenzuela might make all the difference in this one. Simming to our next selection, I do see that my board is a little emptier than it was before we simmed. However, there is a player at the top who I did not expect to be here. There is only one draftable closer in this class, and Chris Benitez looks like an absolute animal. Considering that he's number 1 on my board, I feel like I cannot resist pulling the trigger. We have now taken a closer 3 years in a row, although if you remember last year, it did not work out very well. Now at number 40, there is a really good value available in Adrian Anaya, and even though I said I didn't want to take a closer until late in the draft, with the way that our board's fallen, I feel like this makes the most sense. We are drafting a pitcher who is number 12 in true talent, and hopefully that rating can hold up. Now simming to the third, one of my players gets taken. That was center fielder Adrian Espinosa, who went at 55. However, with a max potential of 92, he was not the guy I was going to target here. We are taking Aldo Maldonado, and that will set us up perfectly to take Sammy Klein. Everything's going according to plan, as we are ending off a very smooth draft with starting pitcher Thomas Ryan. It definitely wasn't the strongest class, but I feel like we found some gems that made it all worth it. But the bigger story here is we are 4 games under the Cubs entering the break. It is absolutely hilarious to me that my plan coming into the season was to eventually trade Nolan Gorman and a few other players. Obviously, with the way we're playing right now, that is not gonna happen, but I do have to give credit to the trades we did make, as Cole Young is going off. He has without a doubt been our best offensive player, and at 78 overall, that is coming as a massive surprise. He has hit 15 bombs with 61 RBIs, and as a Mariners fan, that's the Cole that I'm hoping for in real life. He is leading our team in nearly every single stat, so I think it's fair to say that we won the Mason Wynn trade. I am curious to check out his numbers, as he's not having a bad season by any means, but Seattle is definitely regretting their decision. Additionally, after a very rocky start, our rotation has been phenomenal. Kyle Leahy and Zach Eflin are doing their thing, and while Sandy Alcantara is falling off a little bit, I'm honestly not too concerned. Out of all the positions we could use an upgrade at, though, I think long reliever might be the biggest one. Hunter Dobbins is clearly not cutting it, so let's bring up Jake Irvin to try instead. I know that players like Jurangelo St. J and Liam Doyle are patiently waiting, but rather than being a long reliever at the show, I feel like getting reps in AAA is still the best thing for their development and for their service time manipulation. Just coming flat out and admitting that. Then looking at the bullpen, it has been up and down with Quijada and Fernandez struggling, but if you remember, we made a big decision calling up Sammy Aguilar, who early on at the show is certainly struggling. A 5.01 ERA is not gonna play, and with several players struggling, we're gonna make a move calling up Gordon Graceffo, along with Zach Thompson, who's having a really nice year at AAA. We're gonna give the new guys a chance, but more than likely, all of those moves are kinda just band-aids for the trade deadline. Nolan Gorman and Zach Eflin are officially off the block, and we are adding relief pitcher and closing pitcher as positions of need. Looking at the block, we do have the farm system to make a big move, and getting Edwin Uceda would certainly be that. On top of that, though, I feel like we could also use another bat, and getting someone like Jonathan Aranda would honestly be a dream come true. He is 85 overall and hits the cover off the ball. It would cost a lot of prospects, but there's a chance that him and Uceda could both be package deals, as they're on the block along with 2 more relievers. Looking at all-star voting, we do not have a starter, but I do expect several players to be in the mix. The first one is Kyle Leahy, who's 6th in voting in the National League, becoming the only pitcher that's even close, and Cole Young is in 5th for second base. Now, assuming that he's tied for second in home runs and is leading in RBIs, I expected a little bit better than that. Nonetheless, it would not be a rebuild without one of our young players getting snubbed of some type of honor, as unfortunately, despite having a winning record, nobody on our team made the All-Star game legitimately. quickly. This year, our honorary All-Star member is none other than Nolan Gorman, and that's funny considering that I almost traded him in the offseason. I'm definitely glad that I didn't though, as he's having another really solid year, but now simming to the second half, we have a few trade offers. There are 6 of them, and through the first 3, I'm really not impressed as they're trying to fleece me, and none of the players that I'm being offered are even on my trade block, although that changes with Jonathan Aranda. They are offering Aranda and Steven Wilson in exchange for a 19-year-old potential pitcher. That is a deal I would definitely accept, but the Rays have another offer on the table as well. This one includes Gleyber Torres, who I definitely don't want, and more importantly, Edwin Uceda. Now, considering that I just got offered both of these, I'm kinda wondering if we can make a bit of a combined deal. I'm gonna counter this first offer, but instead of Steven Wilson, let's do Uceda, and I'm also adding former undrafted free agent, a potential outfielder, Alfonso Corona. While he's an potential player, we did just draft 2 left fielders, so I'm fully comfortable making this move for 2 players that could send us to the playoffs. We are submitting the offer and now we just have to wait. Simming forward just a couple days, that is a blockbuster deal and the first one of this franchise. We have traded Andre Larson, who I believe has 92 or 93 potential, along with Corona, to get 2 players who have 2 years before free agency. With that move, Aranda immediately becomes our number 2 hitter, and Uceda will be our closer. That trade just completely transformed our outlook for the season, but I am not done. Ben Kasparius is here, and I really like his skill set. To try and get this done, I'm going to start my offer with Leo Vernal, and considering that he's a reliever, that might actually be enough. Just in case it isn't though, I'm offering them a second deal with Ezekiel Duran. Getting another reliever on the squad would be a big time deal, and they do accept Kasparius for Ezekiel Duran. That is going to add another solid arm to a bullpen that has quickly improved, and with the rotation playing the way it is as well, I don't know if we can be stopped. We are definitely riding a wave, so I'm offering a 3-year extension to Nolan Gorman that he will accept. After that though, we still have a lot more money in our payroll, so Zach Eflin is also getting extended. With those extensions, 2 players that I completely plan to trade are officially locked up for the next couple years. However, we may not be done as the Rays are offering us another deal. They want Thomas Saggese in exchange for Manuel Rodriguez, and just looking at his stats, I feel like we have to do this. I like Tom Saggese in real life, but in this game, he has not played at the majors in 2 years and is a very replaceable player. We are making another deal with Tampa Bay, getting another closer. By the way, that was a fully user-generated trade that I actually feel like makes some sense. Despite some of the bugs and the crashes, I feel like this game's new trade system has actually been a ton of fun so far. We're advancing through the trade deadline and we are ready for the rest of the season. At the start of August, we are 60-53, projected to win 82 games. Now we're still 5 games back of the Cubs, but checking out the standings, if the season ended today, we would be playing in the second wild card. That is not bad for a team that traded their 4 most important players before the start of the year. Once again, I have been blown away by the surgence of Cole Young as he is still on fire, and Jonathan Aranda should only make our offense more deadly. One player who I am a bit disappointed in is JJ Wetherholt, because while he's playing okay, he's on a cold streak and has not emerged as the superstar I was hoping for. Ironically, he has been exactly what I expected Cole to be, while Cole is what I was hoping he would turn into. They kinda just Freaky Friday'd it, and honestly I'm perfectly okay with it. Then of course, you've got Herrera and Gorman both steadily doing their thing, and I also gotta give a big shout out to Gavin Sheets. If you guys have been watching the channel for a while, you know all about Gavin Sheets from the Pickles series, and for some reason he just keeps finding his way back home, just like Andy Grammer. I could talk about these top players all day, but we do have to acknowledge some of the disappointments as Josh Baez is hitting 236 and Victor Scott is 239. Neither of them are putting up the numbers that we want, as it seems Scott has reached his potential, and as for Baez, he is up 3 overall. all. He's still improving at the very least, and our pitching rotation is still looking about the same. I'm definitely concerned about Sandy Alcantara as he's still progressing, but ever since the middle of June, he has been on a cold streak. He's gotta bounce back as he currently has a 4-12 record, so we are swapping him with Kyle Leahy. I am definitely looking forward to the rest of the season, but before we get there, we gotta check out our draft. Already seeing that after scouting, we're getting some good news on Alejandro Valenzuela. It is time to go into the class, and there it is. First 90+ potential sweep of the season, and it could not have come at a better time. I did not think this class had a lot of juice, but fortunately, due to a little bit of luck, we were able to go for a quality over quantity approach. Honestly, with the strength of this draft class, if any of my players had gotten taken earlier than expected, this would look completely different. Instead though, we absolutely crushed it, finding Alejandro Valenzuela late in the cycle, and I'm so glad I went back through and looked at the first round. Had there been more late round gems available, I probably would have never found him, and we would have settled for the left fielder who I'm going to assume was not nearly this good. Hoyt Barden went to the Reds and ended up being 89 potential, so our sweep would not have held up. Valenzuela is 71 overall, which is absolutely awesome, and then after completely embarrassing myself whiffing on a closer last year, we more than make up for it with Chris Benitez. He is 94 potential, 76 overall, meaning he could be in the bullpen as early as next year. Then going down the list, I was not expecting Adrian Anaya to stick around, but we land him in round number 2 before taking a discovery left fielder in round 3. Aldo Maldonado has 95 potential, which is the max of his range, but he was not the only one to hit a max, as Wendell Nunez, a fellow left fielder, is 99. That is 2 blue chip left fielders in the same class, along with a 96 potential catcher. All 3 of these guys are likely going to be starters of the future, and of course, we ended our class with Thomas Ryan, who will immediately help us replace the pitcher that we traded away for Jonathan Aranda. All in all, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, this class hit like Walter's crystal, and once again, I want to remind you guys that I'm not a rocket scientist. I think that anybody can get classes like this, and if you want to know some better strategies, go and watch my draft guide right after this. With another successful draft out of the way, we are simming the month of August, where we're off to a pretty good start. Right as I say that though, we just went on a huge losing streak, and we're sitting at 70 wins late into August. Despite the losing streak though, that is 2.5 games behind the Cubs, but looking at the standings, we are still in the second wild card. We are only leading by 1.5 games, and with the Brewers on our tail, we need to keep winning. We have been pretty up and down lately, but winning a series against the Dodgers could go a long way, as of course we lose 6-7, and now we gotta rebound against the Pirates. We win the first 2 and secure the sweep, putting us on a bit of a streak going into September. Very fittingly, we're starting the month against Chicago, who we're 3.5 games behind. It feels like we're in a really good spot to make the playoffs, but do keep in mind that Milwaukee is only 2.5 games behind us. We are still in second place, but all it takes to change that is one bad series. Fortunately though, looking at the stats, Cole Young is no longer on a cold streak, and it seems that the rest of the offense is heating up around him. However, if we're gonna beat the Cubs, this rotation needs to be at the top of their game. Everybody's playing well except for Sandy Alcantara, but at least on the flip side of that, this bullpen has really rallied back. Soroka is having another great year, while Swanson has bounced back, and the addition of Ben Kasparius so far is looking electric. He was one of 3 deadline deals that we made, as the other 2 were both with Tampa Bay. We already looked at Jonathan Aranda, but Edwin Uceda is also an all-star, and just from looking at the stats, he has only gotten better since joining the Cardinals. The same goes for Manuel Rodriguez, so I would definitely make another trade with the Rays. Both of them have worked out pretty well. However, now it's time to take on Chicago, and we're facing them twice before the end of the season, along with the Yankees and the Phillies. This March to October is not going to be easy, especially as we start out getting swept before rebounding with a win against Arizona and Chicago. Honestly, when we got swept, my heart sank, but it looks like we're going to win enough to make it to the playoffs. We would win 86 games, coming in second in our division and holding down the second wild card. Now, considering that we barely made the playoffs, I'm definitely glad that we made a move for Jonathan Aranda Aranda and Uceda, because if we didn't, that simulation would have been a lot more stressful. As we saw for most of the year, our best player was Cole Young, hitting 94 RBIs and 26 dingers. Now, trading for Mason Wynn was always going to be a risk, and while I was hoping for Cole to at least be a good player, I never expected this type of breakout season. He was an absolute star, while JJ Wetherholt played solidly, and the addition of Jonathan Aranda was absolutely the spark plug that got us to the postseason. Looking at the rest of our stats, we definitely weren't the flashiest offensive team, but we got the job done when it mattered, and on top of that, we had 5 players hit over 20 bombs. It was a very fun year for the offense, but now looking at the rotation, I'm a little concerned about the cold streaks going into the playoffs. As a result, McGreevy and Eflin both finished above 4 ERA, so I'm definitely a little bit nervous for the playoffs. Looking at the playoff bracket, we are taking on Atlanta with a chance to go and play the Dodgers. Now, I know we would have to go play them at some point, but that's not exactly a great thing to be signing up for. It was a very interesting season, as Gunnar Henderson and Kyle Stowers are both MVP finalists on the Orioles, and Tarek Skubal wins another Cy Young, along with 2 finalists from the Phillies. Sanchez already won one, but Luzardo takes home this one, and now looking at the batting title, I see a very familiar face. That is Lars Nootbaar putting up a really good season with the Blue Jays, and maybe we regret letting him go just a little bit. He's on a 3-year deal with Toronto, and all I can say is good for him. As we've gotten used to, we did not win any major awards, so now it's time for the playoffs, where we're playing a best of 3 against the Braves. I'm definitely feeling nervous for this one, because even though we were one of the best stories in MLB this year, the playoffs are a completely different beast where anything can happen. Early on, we've got Kyle Leahy on the mound, but he gives up a 3-run shot to Ian Happ. Things are not looking good as we're taking on their ace Nick Lodolo, but there's a 2-run shot from Jordan Walker to get us back in the game. That is incredible, as at the start of the inning, we were trailing 4-0, but now we're back within a run. With the tying run at first though, we are going to strand him, so now with our bullpen in the game, I am begging them to hold this down. There's a stolen base from Cruz, and we get out of it. Now we need a rally in the 7th, but we just went 1-2-3, and now we have a bullpen duel. Just kidding, there's a solo shot from Matt Olson right after I said that. That would be the dagger in a Game 1 Atlanta victory, and while there's no question that we're a very young up-and-coming team, I don't think we can hang with them, although that is a really good result. Facing elimination in game number 2, our offense came alive, scoring 7 runs. That will bring us to game 3 against Spencer Strider, and I feel like we have to roll with Alcantara. Just throwing his regular season to the side, he is a certified veteran, and we get off to a great start with 2 runs. That was a very unexpected start against Strider, but now Atlanta gets one back. Now in the top of the 3rd though, Aranda goes deep, and it seems that Sandy is settled in. It is a winner-takes-all game 3, as Cole Young may have grounded into a double play, but he does score the runner from 3rd. Thanks to an early 2 runs, that might have been all we need, although there's a homer from O'Neal Cruz. This is a deadly Atlanta offense led by Ronald Acuna Jr. and Matt Olson. Michael Harris just gave them the lead. Sandy Alcantara was so close to getting out of this with a quality start, so they have officially taken the lead in the top of the 7th. Our big free agent signing with an ERA of nearly 5 gave up 5 runs in this game, so maybe I shouldn't have started him. Our road to victory just became a lot tougher as they scored another run, and now in the top of the 9th, with the season on the line, we're down to our final out. This Atlanta team is way too talented for our own good. I'm way late on that one, and that's fully on me. We lose in the wild card, and our season is over. All I know is with the team this young and this talented, and with a bunch of prospects on the way up, I think our time is coming soon. Now obviously, this offseason is a big deal because we need to figure out how to add to our team without restricting some of the players who are about to come up. For example, I think Liam Doyle and Jurangelo Saintia are both ready to come up, along with a few relievers like Ryan Corona and Sammy Aguilar, who we briefly saw. As far as the rest of the team goes though, I think we're set at catcher and the infield, especially after getting Aranda, and then in the outfield, I still really like Victor Scott II, and we were letting Gavin Sheets play left field. However, However, we could use an upgrade in corner outfield as neither Joshua Baez or Jordan Walker are really cutting it. And while I do really like Josh Baez, he's turning 25 years old and these stats are just a little behind where they should be. I do really like him on the bench or as a DH, but these numbers were simply not good enough to make him a full-time starter. The Mariners traded us Cole Young, but they won the World Series. And simming to the offseason, we start out with a Paul Goldschmidt retirement. I'm sure that he signed a one-day deal to end his career with the Cardinals, but now going into free agency, we have a couple of tough decisions to make. First and foremost, Tanner Houck had a really nice season with us, so at 32 years old, I would be interested in bringing him back. We're offering him a one-year contract worth $14 million, and normally I would not pay market value to a reliever, but Michael Soroka's coming off of 2 very good years, and with our championship window open, we could really use him back as well. This will be a 2-year deal worth $16 total, and Luis Garcia will not be returning. Now, aside from the Nolan Gorman extension, we have not spent big money in this franchise at all, so we do have the budget to at least try and offer extensions to a few key players. First and foremost, we just acquired Uceda, but I want to go ahead and give him 3 years, $35 million. Entering free agency, there's definitely some big fish with Gunnar Henderson, Hunter Brown, and Byron Buxton. We're not going to be looking at anybody of that caliber, but maybe a 2-year deal for someone like Victor Robles would be a good idea. He's got pretty balanced stats with very good defense, and he's coming off a nice season with the Rangers. That is the type of player we could take a risk on, but I'm also trying to bring back Michael Soroka. While we're not dying for a starting pitcher, I feel like that could be one thing that gets us over the top, and even though we have guys coming up, this class is absolutely loaded. For 1 year, $17.3 a year, Mitch Keller's not the flashiest addition, but he would provide another consistent arm. Additionally, I know that we have Rainiel Rodriguez coming up, but extending Ivan Herrera as a long-term DH wouldn't be a bad idea. Rather than a 1-year deal, I'm going to offer him 3 years at $9 million a year. After offering arbitration though, we have just under $17 million left available. That means that I can only afford one of our free agents, and I'm going to go for Victor Robles. That decision's coming in, and he will sign with the Cardinals. Due to our limited budget, the most I can offer Mike Soroka is $6.7 million, and with a 90% motivation, he is making his decision, signing with the Cardinals. We're going into season number 4 with a marginally better lineup featuring Victor Robles batting 7th and playing right field. Joshua Baez is on the bench against righties, but against lefties, he'll be playing in left field. Then in the rotation, Kyle Leahy was our best starter last year, so he'll be our ace on opening day, with Sandy Alcantara hopefully bouncing back from a rough season as the number 2. Following those two guys, we've got Tanner Houck, Michael McGreevy, and Zach Eflin, with Irvin working as the long reliever. Then in the bullpen, we're returning pretty much everybody as Michael Soroka's back on a 1-year deal, and we are seeing a full year of Casparius, Rodriguez, and of course, Uceda. Uceda was only with us for half the season, but apparently he liked it enough to sign a 3-year deal. That's a lot of money to put in the bullpen, but I feel like it's worth it, as with all the prospects that are coming up, we can afford to spend a little bit more elsewhere. This will more than likely be the year that we see Liam Doyle and or Jurangelo St-J, as they've simply been blocked for a couple years by better players. Along with that, fully expect Chris Benitez and Samuel Aguilar to both get their chance if somebody in our bullpen starts to perform poorly. Rainiel Rodriguez is a possibility to come up, but I would say more than likely he'll spend another year in AAA, and it's going to be the same story with guys like Diego Hernandez, who are elite contact hitters, and it's going to be the same story for guys like Diego Hernandez and Drew Saito. They're both extremely good contact hitters, but with a full infield in front of them, it doesn't make a lot of sense to call them up. However, one player we could see come up this year is Vaheva Aloy. At 70 overall in beat potential, he was in line to be the long-term starter at shortstop, but unfortunately, we just drafted Alejandro Valenzuela. I'm sure he was at home watching the draft and just absolutely kicking rocks. I would be upset too. Now obviously, Alejandro's not going to come up this early, but I could very well see Aloy replacing Garrett Hampson, who is currently our utility guy at 34 years old. We're starting out the season taking on the Tigers and lose 5-1, which is certainly not ideal. Unlike last year, we are off to a really slow start at 3-5. That was certainly not the result I expected going into scouting, but there's still a lot of time to turn things around. Unlike in previous drafts, we are picking number 20th this year, so definitely more limited options. We could very well draft a closer or a reliever in the first round, as there are a lot of really good ones. That is certainly a pattern that I've noticed so far, as it seems that relievers are generated at a really high rate. The first player we're gonna scout is Greg Studer, who looks to be an extremely well-balanced player. A max potential of 99 and a max overall of 70 is an extremely good start, but additionally, I'm seeing single-digit lows in his power and his arm accuracy. We're gonna scout him for a couple weeks, and hopefully his rating gets a lot higher than 39. Turning our attention back to the games, we're taking on the Rays, winning a series against them and the Marlins. That will bring us back to 500 as we sweep Miami and then lose to Boston. Just like the start of last year, we're kinda hanging around 500, but more notably, after 2 weeks of scouting Studer, he goes up to number 2 on our board. That is a fantastic pull, and considering he can last to 20, he's an automatic selection. Now looking at the rest of the draft though, I want to find some more options, and there seem to be a couple of solid center fielders in the second round range. Meanwhile, on the field, we have won 2 series in a row, but now lose to Chicago. That will send us into May with a 13-14 record, which is last place in a really competitive division. Taking a look at the stats, it seems that Nolan Gorman is once again doing his thing, along with Cole Young, who's proving that he was not a one-year wonder. He has been extremely successful, leading the team in OPS, and he's looking to repeat his great season with the Cards last year. We're also getting a full year of Jonathan Aranda, which I'm extremely excited about, and Victor Scott II is holding it down in center field. Unfortunately though, I'm not seeing a great season from JJ Wetherholt, who does not have a home run through the first month, and considering that he's A potential, a 644 OPS is not gonna cut it. Along with that, it also seems to be a slow start for Ivan Herrera, who just signed a 3-year deal. Those numbers are extremely concerning, and looking at the rotation, while we do have some guys playing well at the top, Sandy Alcantara is still disappointing us, while Michael McGreevy has taken a step back. Definitely not good on that front, and Matt Swanson cannot decide the type of player he wants to be. So far in this franchise, he's either put up an amazing season or a really horrible one, and that is holding the entire bullpen back. Soroka and Kasparius have definitely been good, but Swanson desperately needs to improve. By the way, just in case you needed a reminder, our farm system is loaded with 5 prospects in the top 10 and over 20 in the top 100. We're gonna see some of those guys come up soon as we're taking on the Dodgers, who beat us 2-1. On the scouting end of things, we are shifting gears to starting pitchers, looking at them by region, starting internationally. However, we're also 4 games under 500, so we need a big time rally, losing a series to Cincinnati before winning 2 against Toronto. We are still playing like a 500 team as we beat Arizona, but none of these series victories have been very decisive at all. If you remember last year, I didn't think that we had a very good draft class, but then we swept with 90 potentials. So even though it's way too early to make any assumptions, I'm feeling pretty good about this one. So even though it's way too early to tell what's going on, I am feeling very good about this class. Closing out the month, we have a division series against the first place Brewers, who beat us 2-1, so we're entering June 2 games under 500. We are barely clinging to life as we desperately need the offense and the rotation to figure it out, as it feels like Cole Young and Jonathan Aranda are our only consistent offensive players. I do have to give credit to Nathan Lucas, as he's also putting up solid stats, but after that, there's a massive drop-off. Despite putting up 24 RBIs each, Robles and Wetherholt are both very much struggling, and after that, Ivan Herrera and Gavin Sheets are still struggling. As far as the rotation goes, at least Sandy Alcantara is starting to overcome his demons, but the unfortunate trade-off in that is Leahy is now on a cold streak himself. I don't want to make any big changes yet, but I will swap out Gavin Sheets in the lineup for Josh Baez, who is playing a bit better in limited opportunities. As for the rotation though, I'm going to give them a little more time to figure things out, but if we don't see some changes soon, we do have a backup plan. Former first round pick Liam Doyle is the next man up, but looking at his stats in AAA, maybe he shouldn't be. After a tough stretch of games, we're getting hit with a few easier ones to hopefully gain confidence, but when we're splitting series against the Rockies, there's not a lot I can really say. I'm not sure what I expected this year, but it was definitely better than this, as just like in year 2, the players that we expected to improve have simply not, but instead, we're kind of the odd team out in a really tough division. Now we are improving a little bit, so I'm curious if a rally's coming, as we are 41-34, jumping into 4th place. It feels like we finally have some momentum as we have a chance to go get Jose Ramirez. Not the guy on the Guardians, but this random left fielder. Unfortunately, I will not be scouting him, but I just thought that was kind of funny. Ending off the month of June, we're taking on the Pirates, who are in last place, as we're able to beat them in 3 games. But once again, we're going up against Milwaukee. We are sitting in a really good spot with 2 weeks before the All-Star game, as we are finishing up scouting. And simming this game against Milwaukee, we win it 9-1 and now beat the Pirates in 4 games. Even then though, we're still sitting in 4th place, and now we have a series against the Dodgers. Even though we're 12 games above 500, we're gonna have to fight for a spot in the playoffs, although winning a series against LA definitely helps. It is time for the MLB draft, where honestly, if Greg Studer goes before number 20, I don't really know what my plan is. This could be a really good draft to take a reliever, as it looks like there's quite a few good ones. As you see with any draft class, there's a lot of good starting pitchers near the range, including the number 8 player and the number 10 player. That being said, I'm not fully sure what my plan is, but we should just be able to wing it. Without wasting any time, we're simulating to my selection where our left fielder is gone. Greg Studer went number 4 to Minnesota. That is so unfortunate, as he's likely going to have mid-90s potential, and now we have to completely shift gears. To make things even worse, there are some starting pitchers here, but they're only discovery, so my options are to either reach for the center fielder, who should be available later, or take a closer. I think that's what I'm gonna do. We are taking a flyer on Neil Navarro, and I'm just hoping that he's gonna be good. Now simming to our next selection, my center fielder is also gone. He's the player that I wanted in this spot, but I was not about to reach for him, so I'm gonna go for the best non-discovery pitcher on my board. At 98 and 63, Gant should have a high ceiling, and simulating forward, I'm hoping for Justin Brown, and this is just not my draft. Brown only lasted 6 more selections before getting snatched up. I do feel like this draft was weaker than the last one, but I'm missing out on so many players that are just getting drafted earlier than I was expecting. That leads us to take another starting pitcher, and that might be all we take for the rest of the draft. Fortunately though, in round 3, Will Palmer's available, and I'm just gonna pull the trigger. His potential should be pretty good. We might get out of this only taking 1 position guy, as both of my next 2 targets are gone. David Stockton and Zuniga both just went, so we are pivoting to a 23-year-old in Chad Cannon. Really not a good draft so far, as I don't think we're gonna sweep 90 potential. We are ending things off with our second closer of the class. That was extremely ugly, so I feel like the game owes me a playoff run. At the break, we are 55 and 41, and looking at the standings, that will be good enough for the second wild card, which is exactly where we were last year. Despite a very slow start to the season, it feels like we have not missed a beat, as Nolan Gorman has emerged as a star, while Cole Young is once again doing his thing. Him and Jonathan Aranda have been pretty consistent throughout the year, and it does look like JJ Wetherholt, Josh Baez, and Ivan Herrera are all heating up. Fortunately, our entire starting 5 has an ERA under 4, which is exactly what you want to see, and in the bullpen, while Jordan Hicks is struggling, Swanson has fought back. He is now pitching extremely well with a 1.65 ERA. Additionally, a 0.55 whip is crazy, and considering the start to the season that he had, I am extremely grateful that he's doing better. Then of course, our closer Uceda is also holding it down, making it to another All-Star game. He was in 5th place for closer voting, and looking at the rest of the rankings, we did not have a starter make it. That is definitely a bit of a surprise, as our rotation's been pretty good, and looking at the offense, Herrera didn't make it, along with Cole Young. However, Nolan Gorman is back in the game, making it to his second All-Star game of the video. Now if you remember, the deadline last year was a huge deal for us, as we got Aranda and Uceda, but going into trade season this year, I'm not exactly sure what my approach should be. We are exactly in the middle of the league in terms of runs scored, but as far as ERA goes, we are in 2nd place. That is not what I expected, and all I can say is we gotta capitalize on this. I do have to admit that it's a little crazy seeing Paul Skeens on the mound, as he would be a 1-year rental, and that would be an insane trade to make, just not for us. The reason I say that is, aside from our rotation pitching extremely well, Paul is in the division, and the Pirates would never make that move with a rival. Then after that, we're seeing 35-year-old Ketel Marte and 34-year-old Seager, who would definitely be fun players, but ultimately we can't afford them. It would be really fun to bring in a good corner outfielder, but Duran is way too expensive, and Wyatt Langford is a rental who will be far too expensive. Looking at the rest of the options though, there's not really much here, as Austin Hayes is the best right fielder on the market. As of now, our DH is Nathan Lucas, who certainly isn't bad, but we could really use an upgrade. That is why I'm looking for not only corner outfielders, but really any position I can get. And how about Nolan Arenado? He is 27 years old, entering the final year of his contract, and as a first baseman, this rental would not be that expensive. Starting things off, I am offering them a Dale Amador, who's a good player buried on a deep roster, and just because we can, I'm gonna throw in a slightly older starting pitcher. Considering that Shanwell's a rental on a really bad team, they should definitely accept this. Simming forward, the Angels do accept the deal, so now for 2 years in a row, we have added a really solid hitter at the deadline. Shanwell is gonna fit right in, batting 4th against lefties and 5th against righties. Also, with the struggles of Jordan Hicks, we're gonna try to outright him to AAA, and we are calling up Sammy Aguilar for the second time of his career. We are ready for this second half of the season as Jarren Duran goes to the Diamondbacks, and our first series against Philadelphia didn't go well as we lose 2-1. Now we're taking on the worst team in baseball though, and do secure the sweep, which is expected. I am not gonna make any other trades at the deadline as I feel like our team is pretty much done, although now we get swept by San Diego. That will send us into August barely in 3rd place as we're 4.5 games behind Milwaukee. Now we just have to sim 1 game to view our draft picks. We beat Colorado 6-0. It is time for the moment of truth, and just being honest with you guys, I don't think this one's gonna be very good. We started out in the first round taking a closer who ended up being 89 potential, but the big kicker here was the player we took in the second. I do wish that Navarro was better, but we secured Mike Gant and Brian Scott, who are both incredible. Starting off at the top though, Gant was the cream of the crop of this class as he's 99 potential and 64 overall. That is a future ace in the second round, and that does make up for not getting our guy in the first. I do like Neil Navarro, but when you draft a closer that high, you're kind of expecting insane potential. Scott was really good alongside Will Palmer and Chad Cannon, but we missed extremely badly on Michael Hu. I know he's 86 potential, but at 39 overall, there's pretty much no chance that he gets to the show. Now, of course, I gotta look at the guys that I didn't get, as a player I didn't even scout in Oliver Polanco ended up being an absolute gem. If I had scouted him, he definitely would have been my first round pick, but honestly, he flew completely over my head. He was not even on my radar as there was a generational player in this class, but then Justin Brown, one of the players that I didn't get a chance to take, was 97 potential. I know he's still got a shortstop in the 90s, but he's 23 years old and Brown would just be a far better option. That is definitely unfortunate, especially considering that this reliever is far better than the guy we drafted. He is not only a higher potential, but he's 6 overall higher than the guy we took in the first. That does make me think that we kinda missed with our first round selection. And now getting to the big one, Greg Studer went number 4 overall, and he was 94 potential and 65 overall. It seems Minnesota knew exactly what they were getting with him, as there is our third 99 potential player in this class. Now I will say that we did have a really nice draft considering how many players we missed on, including right fielder Edgar Zuniga. While it definitely could have been a lot better, I also have to say that it could have been a lot worse. Considering our great success, I feel like we have to at least offer Jonathan Aranda an extension, and he's asking for 5 years. Considering that he's 30 years old, that does make a lot of sense, but I'm gonna offer him 4 and just pay him a little less money. How about 4 years, 72.7? That'll get it done. Even though that draft wasn't the best of the video, I feel like it was still everything that we needed as we're simulating September, taking on Milwaukee twice, losing the first series, and winning the second. From there, we're just gonna simulate the rest of the season and just hope that we make it to the playoffs. On September 24th, we're in 3rd place in our division, and looking at the wild card race, we are tied with the Cubs, as this will come down to an interdivision affair. The Giants and the Phillies have come out of nowhere, taking the top 2 spots, so our final 2 series of the year are definitely gonna matter as we're taking on the Braves, sweeping them in 3 games. That will now put us 2 games above Chicago, so all we need now is 1 more win to make the playoffs. We lose to the Reds twice, coming down to the final game, and we are in. We have barely snuck into the playoffs with a 90-72 record, and of course, in the first round, we are taking on Milwaukee. It was a bit of a roller coaster this year, but we did improve our record by 4 wins from last season, despite just barely making the playoffs. playoffs. It literally came down to the final game of the season, but hopefully that will send us into the playoffs with something to prove. Overall, it was a pretty good year for the offense, as the addition of Nolan Arenado really patched things together, giving us another solid bat at the top of our order. Additionally, it was a 37 home run, 95 RBI season for Nolan Gorman, who once again showed worthy of that pretty sizable 3-year extension. At least early on, that's looking like an absolute bargain, so I'm very excited that we locked down him along with Jonathan Aranda. Then in the rotation, it was another solid year, as I'm seeing a lot of ERAs under 4. In fact, that was actually a trend for every single member of the rotation, including Jurangelo St. John, who ended up replacing Jake Irvin's role in the final couple months. He was incredibly good in that position, so I'm excited to see him as a full-time starter. Everybody on the team did their job, and then in the bullpen, Matt Swanson had a fantastic bounce-back year, while Mike Soroka also did his thing holding down the fort. Overall, while it definitely wasn't pretty at some points, the Cardinals did end up having a really nice season. That will send us into the playoffs against our division rivals, the Milwaukee Brewers, who also won the NL Central. Looking at their starting lineup, I'm seeing a really good team, as they still have guys like William Contreras, Bryce Terang, and even Christian Yelich, but they also went out and signed Stephen Kwan and Alec Boehm. Now, I'm not exactly sure why Jackson Churrio's on the bench, but it really just goes to show how much depth this team has. Additionally, I'm also really scared of this rotation as they get back Corbin Burns, and without Brandon Woodruff, Jacob Misiorowski is fully comfortable being their ace. While I do feel like we've built a good and balanced roster, it might not be enough to beat a team like Milwaukee, as going into the bottom of the second, Kyle Leahy's on the mound, giving up a solo shot to Stephen Kwan. We are already down by 1 as we get a man on board, but nothing happens, and Corbin Burns is still no-hitting us. We did not get a hit until the 5th inning, but there's a home run from Aranda, tying this right back up. That was so overdue, as they have 2 aboard after an error, and Christian Yelich, the old man, ices the game. After that, we completely lost confidence as they win this game 9-2. They made a huge statement in Game 1 with Corbin Burns on the mound, and mind you, he's not even their number 2 or number 1. Now facing elimination, we're going up against Jacob Misiorowski, who walks the bases loaded. Misiorowski gets out of it, but not for long, as Nolan Gorman puts us on the board. Early on, we are eating against him as Sandy Alcantara is holding his own on the mound. In a battle of the aces, he came to play, but it is tied up. That is Frelick tying the game, and now they're able to go up by 1. That is a really unfortunate break, as we're trailing by 1 in the 6th inning, but there's a ground out. We just stranded 2 guys on base, and now we have to deliver against a really good bullpen. We are running out of chances, but with runners at the corners, can we score them? There's 2 outs and another strikeout. Despite building a really solid team, we're going down in the wild card once again, as unlike last year, the Brewers actually swept us and move on to the NLDS. The Cardinals have been eliminated for the 2nd straight season, and now their team is going to be changing quite a bit. They would go on to win their first World Series, beating the team that has the most World Series ever. In that game, Stephen Kwan was the MVP, and looking at the awards, Shohei Ohtani goes back to winning NL MVPs, with Brent Rooker winning in the AL. He was in first with his teammate Kurtz in third, and then for the Cy Young, Orioles pitcher Jack Flaherty won it, with Christopher Sanchez taking home the award after running up last year. Then for reliever of the year, Perry Benton took it home, and probably for a good reason. This guy was one of the best closer prospects I think I've ever seen. Once again, the Cardinals would not win any major awards, as Ohtani also takes home the Hank Aaron. That will send us into the offseason, where we definitely have some major decisions to make. Now, fortunately, I did extend Aranda along with Houck and Shanwell during the year, but we still have to make a huge decision on 34-year-old Sandy Alcantara. He is asking for 2 years at $23 million a year, and I just don't think we can offer that. We are letting him test free agency, so very likely, after years of waiting, we're finally going to see some of our younger pitchers. Despite failing to get past the wild card though, I still do believe that we can win with this team, although we're still waiting on JJ Wetherholt to decide the type of player he wants to be. While he's been an okay player throughout the video, I was expecting him to be an absolute star, and while he's 87 overall, that simply has not happened. Rather than Wetherholt breaking out, Cole Young has been phenomenal, and while I am okay with the trade-off, it's definitely not what I expected. We do have a bit of money to make a splash in free agency, and at least from my initial thoughts, there would be no better way to do this than stealing a player away from the World Series champs. Not only are the Brewers the champs, but they're also in our division, and considering that Sal Frelick hit a dinger against us, I feel like it would be smart to bring him in. Additionally, while we're losing Sandy Alcantara, I do trust our young guys in Liam Doyle and Jurangelo St. Jah to at least come up and fill the void. That being said, Frelick is honestly the only player that I'm after, and we're about to find out if he's interested in us at all. Additionally, I'm also looking through the trade block where I see Evan Carter. He is very intriguing at 84 overall with extremely good contact in center field, and considering that Victor Scott is not a very good offensive player, he would be a massive upgrade and is also entering the final year before free agency. While I'm not going to initiate a trade right now, I will add him to my list of targets. His bat would be a considerable upgrade over Victor Scott, who I've really tried to progress in this, but ultimately he's reached his ceiling and is not getting any better. That is the reason that I'm after a brand new center fielder, and going to free agency, Sal Frelick is interested in signing with the Cardinals. Now, I'm definitely not giving him 5 years, but 4 with a little bit more money seems fair to me. He is already making his decision, and this might be the most important free agent signing in history, as we're getting a phone call, and thankfully, that just means that he's not making a decision right now. I was scared to death that we missed out on him, but now we have some competition from Tampa Bay, so we got to increase the stakes just a little bit. We are giving him 4 years, $100 million, and also throwing Bailey Ober on the board. Advancing forward, it is time for take 2, as now another team is in on it, but fortunately, there's pen to paper. We just got our guy, stealing him away from Milwaukee. That is a blockbuster move, and now I'm fully focused on fixing our outfield. I feel like Evan Carter could be the solution, so I'm gonna go ahead and at least offer a trade for him. We're gonna see if Leo Bernal and Josh Baez can get this done. Moving forward, they do accept it, and that is an absolute win. We give up Baez, who has 3 years before free agency, and also Bernal, who has not played at MLB at all. Going into this video, I did have great hope for Josh Baez, as he's an incredibly balanced player, but in the end, he just couldn't develop. After flashing in 27 with 70 RBIs, he was downhill ever since, so we acquire Sal Frelick and Evan Carter, completely transforming the outfield, and I think it's time for Victor Scott to go on the block. Now entering the Rule 5 draft, I really thought that I was done adding players, but I see that I can go get Ryan Pepiot. For whatever reason, the Atlanta Braves are so good that Pepiot's sitting there at the very top, and if we were to take him on, it would only cost us $15.6 million per season. I am absolutely gonna pull the trigger, as we just got a great starter for completely free. That will single-handedly replace Sandy Alcantara, and all I'm gonna say is maybe MLB The Show shouldn't allow that type of player to hit the Rule 5 draft. Even if they're not gonna start, there's definitely a lot more value in trading someone like him, as he will enter the year as our best starting pitcher. With the offseason winding down, I'm trading Victor Scott away for a really solid closer in Alonzo Birch. Now, in case you forgot, I passed on Birch a couple years ago to take the worst player of the entire rebuild, as I completely whiffed on a 70 potential closer. Getting Birch back in this video would be a huge redemption arc, but in order to make it happen, we gotta throw in another player, and how about Blaze Alexander? After re-signing Gunnar Henderson, this Orioles team is looking to win, and Scott would become their starting center fielder, while Alexander would start at third base. While we wait on that though, I offered Bailey Ober a 1-year deal worth $12.6 million, and he actually accepted it. Now, I was not expecting to actually get him, so we're in a really interesting spot. Early on, the plan was to bring up Jurangelo St. Jah and Liam Doyle, and I definitely still want to do that, but there's currently 8 starting pitchers on the MLB roster. I definitely think the odd man out here is Zach Eflin, and he still has a lot of trade value at 35 years old, coming off of another really solid season. We would make the Victor Scott move, although it ended up looking a little bit different, so that is another reliever added to a very talented bullpen. We would trade Eflin to the Padres in exchange for a reliever. Entering season 5, I feel like this has gotta be our year. Starting off, we still got Cole Young and Aranda at the top, but now we've got Sal Frelick batting number 3. Additionally, add in a whole year of Nolan Arenado, along with new additions in Evan Carter and top prospect Rainiel Rodriguez, and this offense is far and away the best one we've ever had. And that is not even mentioning what might be our best rotation ever. I was not planning to add to this unit, but we still acquire Bailey Ober, along with Ryan Pepio in the Rule 5 draft. That is certainly a surprise, as this group is rounded out by former first-round pick and top prospect Liam Doyle. He is finally up at the show, with St. J and Michael McGreevy serving as long relief, and a whole bunch of interesting players in the bullpen. It would definitely take a lot for this season to fall short, but starting out, we're once again flirting with 500. I feel like we do this every single year, as I'm getting some deja vu, even with a team that should be way better than 500. Now obviously, it's still early in the year, so I'm definitely being dramatic, but I honestly just have extremely high expectations for the new season. However, at the start of May, we are 15-15. Even after building an extremely fun team, I feel like we're underperforming, although JJ Wetherholt might finally be breaking out. He is once again swapping roles with Cole Young, who may be starting to heat up, but early on, the superstar is Wetherholt. Then in the rotation though, Ryan Pepio is struggling a little bit, and while it's too early to say anything, I'm also a little bit worried about Tanner Houck. With several players on hot and cold streaks, it's a little tough to see which way we're headed, although now we're tied for first in the division. A series win against Chicago might have been all we needed, as now we're facing off against Cincinnati, sweeping them, and going on a huge win streak into June. That will put us up 2.5 games over Milwaukee, and after seeing some cold streaks, it looks like all of them have turned to heat. Gorman, Aranda, and Shanwell are all on fire, and while Wetherholt's still playing well, it seems that his 1000 OPS start was nothing short of a fluke. Regardless, we are surging into June with 5 guys on hot streaks, so I'm curious to see just how far we take this surge and we get swept by the Angels. However, the rest of the month is not going to be easy, as we're going up against Seattle, the Dodgers, and Milwaukee. After losing a series to Seattle, we beat the Dodgers though, and we're hanging on by a thread. That will bring us into a wild card rematch, as they get the best of us in the first game, but we get even in the second. We are very fortunate to be in first place in the division, as we beat Milwaukee, and that is great revenge for the playoff loss. Now immediately after, we're able to win our next 4 games after dropping 2 against the Nats. That will keep us on top in our division, as we're going into another MLB draft in season number 5. It finally feels like we're moving, but simming to our selection in this class, I gotta admit that I have no plan. This year, I kinda did my scouting on autopilot, so this is the first time I'm actually looking at the class, and honestly, after the success we had last year, going closer again just makes too much sense. Think I'm just curious more than anything if Peter Taguchi's gonna be as good as he looks. While I am incredibly tempted and interested how he's gonna turn out, I think I gotta go with the best player available, taking Oliver Ramirez. He's the number 4 player on my board, so I could not pass him up. Now simming to our next selection, Taguchi is still available. That is not what I expected, and I know he's not a safe pick at all. I know he's probably gonna be on the low end of his potential, but all I'm seeing here is that he has a very similar draft profile to the defending reliever of the year who played on the Brewers. Now, the stamina's definitely a little high for what you look for in a closer, and I feel like someone like Eric Villa or Hank Brayman would both be far safer selections. I am very tempted to go for Taguchi, and honestly, just for research, we're gonna pull the trigger. We will find out if that works out. Now simulating to the second round, the board is starting to empty itself out, so I want to make sure I make a move quickly. Out of the infielders in this class, there were not a lot of good ones, with Tom Mahoney being the best, and as a first baseman with a max potential of 93, he is not a player that I'd normally go for in this spot, but I feel like we have not drafted a first baseman in a very long time. He becomes our selection, and now at number 96, I see that another closer is also available. That is very tempting, but ultimately I'm gonna go with another position guy, as I feel like we've already drafted quite a few closers. We are going position player heavy, taking 3 high potential project guys in a row, before ending things off with with a high potential starter, as we tend to do so often. At the start of August, we are rolling with a 64-45 record, which is 6.5 games up in the Central. However, that is only good for the third best record in the National League, with Atlanta and the Dodgers in front of us. While it is very exciting that we're winning right now though, I do want to prepare for the future, re-signing Evan Carter to a 4-year deal worth $76.5 million. I know that's a bit of investment for a guy that's hitting 51 RBIs, but considering that we just acquired him and our system's pretty thin at center field, it was very important that we got him locked down long term. Looking at the rest of the stats, JJ Wetherholt has been phenomenal with 73 RBIs and 19 home runs, but of course we gotta talk about Jonathan Aranda and Nolan Gorman. Gorman in particular has been on fire in this video, becoming the elite power hitter that every Cardinals fan wants him to be. He has been extremely impressive alongside lightning in a bottle Cole Young. Even though we're in first place in the division though, I do want to talk about the negatives, as Rainiel Rodriguez, even though he's heating up, has not been very consistent at all. Entering the rebuild, he was the number 2 prospect in the Cardinals system, and he's finally getting his shot in year 5, but is playing way below his ratings. The same also goes for Victor Robles, who we signed 2 years ago in free agency, and I think it's safe to call him an absolute bust. Then in the rotation, it has been a really difficult season for Bailey Ober, but on the bright side, Liam Doyle has played great alongside several other players. We are on a very good pace to win the division, but before we simulate the rest of the year, it's time to view our draft. Honestly, this one could either be really good or really bad, and it's leaning towards the bad side. I know there's a lot of green here, but there's definitely a lot more context. Starting at the top, Oliver Ramirez is 88 potential despite being the number 3 player in the class. Now that could have been due to the limited pitching scouting, but I just don't think the lefty is all that great. 60 overall in B potential is maybe a 4 or 5 starter for us. We took a massive swing on Peter Taguchi, and he ended up being on the low end of his potential. Honestly, I think this is just a lesson to be learned, as with all of the high 90s potentials, there was no way he was going to be as good as the player card was telling us. Nonetheless though, it's not a complete waste, as he's 77 overall and will slide into the bullpen almost immediately. Then after that, we took Tom Mahoney, who's 89 potential but does have a pretty solid floor, before ending off the class with 3 late round position guys and Bernardo Franco, who I was expecting to be a lot better. It definitely wasn't the best draft in the world and probably was the worst of this video, but it still had a lot of redeeming qualities. Now with the division in the palm of our hands, we're simming the month of August, where we stay dominant, continuing to win plenty of series. After trading Josh Baez and Victor Scott, there were some big questions about the Cardinals, but it turns out that acquiring Sal Frelick and Evan Carter helped us turn the offense around, and we make the playoffs with 98 wins, getting a first round bye. It definitely wasn't the MVP, as Rafael Devers took the crown away from Ohtani with an insane season. That has got to be the Red Sox fans' worst nightmare, as Seager wins it at like 47 years old. I guess he's 35, that's not that bad. Then for the Cy Young, you got Max Fried and Logan Gilbert, and reliever of the year is Edwin Uceda. That is his first reliever of the year, to go along with 4 All-Star appearances. Now I'm not sure if that's good enough for the Hall of Fame, especially as a reliever, but nonetheless, I think it's fair to say we got a good one. Now the moment we've all been waiting for, we gotta check out the stats, where I'm seeing 3 guys with 105 and 104 RBIs. It was an absolutely insane season for Nolan Gorman, who went nuclear with 42 dingers and 105 RBIs. He did all of that despite putting up a 241 average, and I think it just goes to show that power is so valuable. Then after that, Cole Young and JJ Wetherholt were both phenomenal in the middle infield, becoming one of the best duos in all of Major League Baseball. We also gotta give credit to Aranda for continuing to do his thing, along with Evan Carter, who I'm so thankful we signed to an extension. Overall, I gotta say that the offense was pretty good, as some players could have been a lot better, but we're still going into the playoffs with a high-level lineup. We're gonna find out who we're taking on in the NLDS, but first, I want to talk about AAA. First and foremost, this team is absolutely loaded, but looking at their developments, it was a huge year for the farm system, so no matter what happens in the playoffs, we are stacked for the foreseeable future. I do have to say that 5 years in, I never expected our our infield to just kind of come together, as Gorman and Wetherholt were both on the original team, and of course Cole Young was acquired through trade. They are blocking the first draft pick of this entire video, along with Drew Saito, who at one point was a top 5 prospect in baseball. Not to mention, Alejandro Valenzuela might be ready to come up right now, but considering that Wetherholt's playing shortstop, I honestly don't know when he's gonna get playing time. We have built a really special organization from top to bottom, and now in the NLDS, we'll get to show how far we've come against the Dodgers. And you just heard the fear in my voice on the word come. That's because I am so nervous for this. Now, Ohtani and Will Smith, along with Andy Pages, are the only players remaining in this lineup. However, they've already hit 2 dingers against us. That is not a good start, but leave it to Nolan Gorman to go as deep as he possibly can. With 2 aboard against Ohtani, we cannot score them, and Tanner Houck would give up another run to Brendan Donovan. Now we really need a rally here in Game 1, as again, 2 are aboard, but we fail to capitalize. It has been a pretty tough day for Tanner Houck, giving up runs in each of the first 3 innings. And while the season that he just had earned him the right to get the playoff start, it's not looking good, although Aranda ties it up. Now with a chance to take the lead, here's the rookie Rainiel Rodriguez, who flies out into right field. I am extremely grateful that we've tied the game, but we have left so many runners on base, as with 2 outs for Aguilar, he does get out of this, sending us into the bottom of the 6th, tied up at 3 apiece. Once again though, both sides are blanking each other. Here's Michael Soroka, sending us to the bottom of the 7th, where we have 2 aboard again, and Nolan Shanwell delivers an RBI double. We are now just 2 innings away from winning this first game against the Dodgers, as Swanson checks in, and we're gonna see the reliever of the year, Aranda with the dagger. Uceda's in the game to close this one out. Ohtani puts runners at the corners. It doesn't matter. After going down 3-1 against the Dodgers, we rally back to take the Game 1 W. What an incredible effort from the top of the lineup, as Aranda hit 2 dingers, and Nolan Gorman also went yard. After winning the first game, our confidence is at an all-time high as we lose the second before rebounding in game number 3. All I can say is it would be so nice to eliminate them and avoid game 5, because I don't know if my heart can take that. This rebuild has already been such a journey, and with runners at the corners, we get out of that. We've got Bailey Ober on the mound, and so far he's doing his job as we walk the bases loaded, and Jonathan Aranda, that's an RBI walk. We would go on to score 2 more runs in that inning, making it 3-0 before Ohtani chips into it. Now we need to get one back though. Evan Carter triples, and that is an easy single. Wetherholt taps him home, and that might be it. Nolan Gorman gave us the dagger, as we would go on to crush them 11-3. That is a huge statement against the best team in the National League, as we are moving on to the LCS. Before we see who we're playing though, I just gotta give a huge shout out to Nolan Gorman. He was 5 for 5 with 4 RBIs, and 2 of those were home runs. We are moving on to the World Series, taking on the Giants and MVP Rafael Devers. While I do feel like our roster is equipped for this, I'm always nervous when I see superstar players on the other side. However, we did do well against Shohei Ohtani, although this team has Byron Buxton and Brady Singer as well. Buster Posey has low-key been cooking in San Francisco, but it might not matter as we win the first 2 games and the first 3. Liam Doyle's on the mound as we're looking for the sweep, but they start out with a 2-run shot. That is not good, as Ryan Nelson is shutting us out, at least until Wetherholt delivers. That will bring us back within 1, but again, this offense is just too good, and they've finally woken up here in game number 4. They would win 12-5, breaking up the sweep and making it 3-1. Now, I'm definitely not sweating yet, but we do need to beat Logan Webb with Bailey Ober on the mound. That is much easier said than done, but Nolan Gorman once again delivers a huge play. In this playoff run, he has not had the best batting average, but it has not mattered, as we are breaking through Logan Webb with singles and doubles alike. It is 3-1, and then to cap things off, there's 2 more RBIs from Rainiel Rodriguez and JJ Wetherholt, as in the bottom of the 8th, Sponson's trying to put them away, but they are right back within 1. This one could not be tighter as we go 1-2-3, and it is all up to Uceda to end this game. There's a single and a stolen base as the tying run is in scoring position. Down to their final out, here is the payoff pitch. Uceda places it beautifully to freeze them for strike 3. That got a little scary there, but Uceda's able to close them out, and the St. Louis Cardinals have won a pennant. That was an unnecessary nail-biter as the Giants came surging back from down 5-1, but I gotta give a lot of credit to Rainiel Rodriguez. He did not have the best rookie season, but in today's game, he delivered 2 key doubles. That will send us to the World Series, where we are taking on the Boston Red Sox. Now, just to be honest, it was either them or the Yankees, so we're not getting a favorable matchup either way, especially because the Red Sox are absolutely loaded. Not only do they have Garrett Crochet and Freddie Peralta, but their trio of closers is absolutely filthy. We are the underdog no matter what, as we lose to Garrett Crochet before rebounding in game number 2, and we are all tied up going into game 5. Going up against Brian Bello, there's no doubt that this is a must-win game, but so far the offense is struggling and there's a dinger from Christian Campbell. We really need to rally back, and right on cue, Rainiel Rodriguez scores 2 with a double. That is a huge deal as now in the 7th inning, Wetherholt starts us off with a double before we strand him on second, leaving the Red Sox within 1. Now in the bottom of the 8th, here is Matt Swanson, who so far in the postseason has struggled, and after a Roman Anthony single, he does get out of this, but we are unable to deliver the final blow. It is all up to Uceda, and the reliever of the year does get the save. That was a sweaty game, but we are 1 victory away from winning the World Series. Now I've been recording this all night, and it all comes down to this: Nolan Gorman's trying to send me to sleep a happy man. We get out to an early 2-0 lead, but Ceddanne Rafaela had to make it interesting as Tanner Houck is struggling. Unfortunately, the Red Sox just scored 3 runs, taking the 1-run lead. Now in the bottom of the 4th though, Gorman continues to be the absolute GOAT. We are going up against Freddie Peralta, scoring 3 runs just 1 inning after they scored theirs, although Roman Anthony leads off this inning with another dinger. This could be the game that wins us the World Series, but so far we're in an absolute shootout, and of course the game crashes. Are you freaking kidding me? Attach a screenshot and video clip? Yeah, I'm absolutely gonna do that because we were about to win the frickin' World Series. You know what? The funniest thing about that is someone on Twitter the other day tried to say that I'm not actually experiencing crashes on PlayStation, and I'm only lying about it to try and spread negative attention to the game. First and foremost, I've been perfectly critical of this game, and second of all, that seems like an absolutely ridiculous thing to lie about. Anyways, we're in trouble in the bottom of the 9th. There's no way! Nolan Shanwell right down the pipe, bro. That is crazy. He left a splitter right down the middle. In the trade deadline acquisition, Nolan Shanwell belts it into dead center, just like Babe frickin' Ruth. I don't even care that I wasn't ready. I don't care that I broke character. That was a great frickin' time. It is 6:30 in the morning, but I finally won the Cardinals a World Series, and if you enjoyed our journey to the top, please drop a like and subscribe, and also click right here to see more of my content.